OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
7:30 on this Tuesday morning. You're very welcome along to OTB AM. Plenty coming up this morning. We're going to be chatting about Stephen Kenny's first Ireland squad. We've got interviews with Michael Darragh MacAuley and Kellie Harrington. We're going to be talking about Dundalk, and we're going to be picking our Ireland rugby backlines. And of course, there is every single weekday morning, deal or no deal, and there's going to be plenty happening on the transfers front there. You can drop us a tweet at Off The Ball if you have anything you want to get off your chest, and we'll get to your comments after 8 o'clock. We are starting this morning, though, with Damien Delaney and Nathan Murphy. They joined Joe on last night's football show.
Some would describe the squad as interesting, thinking emoji, crying, laughing emoji, Nathan Murphy. We'll come to that in a moment. But give people the headline news from this squad then. Who's in?
Headline news, there's nothing shocking. There's maybe a couple of surprises. We're obviously going to be looking at how many of the 21s would come through. So you have Troy Parrott in there. You've got Adam Ida in there. Aaron Connolly was very much expected to be in there. And Jason Malumbi is in there as well. And Mark Travers was always going to be the backup goalkeeper. But aside from that, that's it from the 21s. So there's no place for Darragh O'Shea, no place for Jason Knight. And probably the controversy that has emerged is there's no place for Michael Obafemi from his tweet a little bit earlier on when as you say, the emojis were used and the word interesting was used, which was shortly after a tweet which was deleted, which said disgrace and a couple of emojis. So Michael Obafemi's understandably not happy. So that's probably going to be the big story over the next 24 hours regarding this squad. I don't think there's any major shocks. Glenn Whelan is gone. Glenn Whelan's 36. He's going to be 37 by the time Euro 2021 comes around. So it's not a hugely surprising development. But he's the only player who started that game, nearly 10 months ago now against Denmark, who misses out on this. Kieran Clark came off the bench that night. He's not involved, but he's had quite a few struggles with injury. Maybe the exclusion of Jack Byrne may raise a few eyebrows, but he's had a bit of a struggle with injury since the restart of the League of Ireland. Wasn't able to take a huge amount of action in training ahead of the restart, and maybe hasn't quite hit the heights where Stephen Kenny felt he couldn't leave him out. And some of those championship strikers, which Stephen Kenny touched on this presser when he was asked about Michael Obafemi, the likes of Seanie Maguire, Scott Hogan in particular, maybe might have been expected to be in there, particularly when there are so many attacking players, more attacking players than defenders in this squad. Just 6 defenders named for the 2 games.
We'll start with some of what Stephen Kenny was saying this afternoon. Naturally, he was asked about Michael Obafemi's omission. Troy Parrott in the squad, as you said. Adam Ida in. He scored a brilliant goal, by the way. I don't know if you see it on Twitter in the last hour or so. Norwich in a pre-season game against Germany. Really brilliant finish from Adam Ida. So he's in the squad. No Michael Obafemi with his 4 goals in 25 appearances this season, including 3 in the Premier League. So here is Stephen Kenny.
Michael is a good player, good talent also, and I think scored a couple of very good goals last year. So I think, it'd be interesting to see Michael with the under-21 team in the up-and-coming games.
Was it a situation where it was himself versus Troy Parrott versus Adam Ida? Was it a 2 from the 3, basically? No. I mean, there's a lot of players, some of the players that we've left out are really talented, are on standby, and a lot of out, and I think we left some good strikers out, and I think players that want to make their mark and players that have been playing in the championship regularly, like Seanie Maguire and James Collins and Scott Hogan, who all feel that they can contribute. And have all made contributions and have a lot more to give as well. So that's the nature of it. There's a lot of tough decisions, and I think that's the nature of it. Just on Parrott, I think this is your first time talking since he's got his loan move confirmed. How big is that from your perspective, and how hopeful are you that he can succeed in the championship this season? Well, no one can be certain. I think I think obviously he had the appendicitis that knocked him for 6, and then he came back and trained really hard with Spurs, did really well, got himself fit. Millwall, pre-season's gone well for him so far. He looks in very good condition, and he's someone with a lot to give, you feel, and great temperament, and he wasn't picked in the original squad, to be honest. David McGoldrick, obviously, with his foot injury, coming into the second squad. So Troy
has all the if you're replacing David, Troy has similar characteristics in that he's very good with his back to goal, drops into midfield, can take you into feet or into his body and bring other players into the game, and obviously he's a very, very good finisher as well. So I think so Troy came in when David's foot injury prevented him being selected for the initial camp. So we said, we'd bring Troy in.
There are a lot of forward-looking players in this squad, Nathan. Callum Robinson's there, Callum O'Dowda, James McLean, Aaron Connolly, Adam Ida, Troy Parrott, Shane Long, and David McGoldrick will join the squad for the Finland game. He has a long-term foot injury they're trying to manage at the moment. So I don't think it's an especially big story that Michael Obafemi has been left out. In November, Ralph Hasenhüttl memorably talked about a lack of professionalism in Michael's life and that he was a young guy who must learn quickly. And then the season did develop reasonably well for Obafemi. The goal at Stamford Bridge in particular jumps to mind, and he got an equaliser at Old Trafford. But even as late as June, Hasenhüttl said of Obafemi, without workload as a striker, you've no chance to play, especially in our team, and that's something he has to learn, especially when he gets the chances to play 2 games in a week. It's always a problem. We have to pay attention to his physicality as he's had injuries, and we really have to take care of him. But that doesn't mean in the second game he can rest on the pitch. It's important he knows he has to invest a lot, because if he doesn't, it's not good. It's a relationship that's hard to get totally to grips with, Hasenhüttl and Obafemi, because he keeps giving them chances, and 25 appearances is a decent amount, and yet publicly is not always brimming with praise. The short version here probably is Obafemi's time should hopefully come. Don't take to Twitter. I know we're all young and do silly things.
No, maybe the tweets today back up a little bit of what Ralph Hasenhüttl was saying, that there are at times maybe questions over his attitude and making the right decisions for his career. It's important to remember that, yes, the stats in terms of starts, in terms of appearance this season, in terms of goals, are well ahead of, say, Adam Ida and Troy Parrott. But he hasn't set the world alight since the restart. He only started 2 matches since the restart, and he was taken off at half-time in both of them. Now, he is only 20, and you're right, his time should come. But also from Stephen Kenny's point of view, Kenny doesn't know him as well as he knows Ida and Parrott. So Kenny had 10 of them. He was involved in every single squad. He knows exactly what he's about. He knows about his hold-up play. He has very much bought into what Stephen Kenny is about as well, and he's got him goals for the 21. So although you can understand from Michael Obafemi's point of view, he's probably looking at Adam Ida thinking, well, he hasn't played in the Premier League as often as I have. Ida's only that 1 Premier League start when they were well beaten by Manchester United, already got some goals in the FA Cup. And Troy Parrott's never played in the Premier League. So therefore, why should they be ahead of him? But again, Parrott has been in with Stephen Kenny, has shown certainly he can perform, but also how flexible he is. And that, I think, maybe is what has gone against Obafemi here as well. Kenny touched on that. He wants forwards, and nearly all of those forwards are very adaptable. They can play in different positions. They can play across the front 3, and he's made it clear he's going to play a front 3. So Obafemi's generally been playing alongside Danny Ings as part of a front 2, doesn't see that. And on his appearances for the 21s, and he's been unfortunate as well in that he's had injuries and he's been in around the senior squad at times, so he hasn't had a chance to be with the 21s. And you could see he was probably frustrated the night of the scoreless draw against Italy, where he drops back to the 21s and he doesn't start, and he gets 20 minutes at the end. Then the only game he did start under Kenny was the one match they were beaten at Iceland. So right now, maybe it's a case that his face doesn't fit, but he probably just needs to knuckle down at club level and at under 21 level and do enough to impress him.
Yeah, it wasn't in that clip, but elsewhere Kenny did talk about the lone striker role, and it's not one that Obafemi has necessarily played all that often, as you've mentioned as well. And it was notable when he talked about Parrott, he mentioned his ability to come deep, back to goal, and in a David McGoldrick-esque way, bring others into play. It's probably a little clue for us as to what Stephen Kenny is specifically looking for in his striker, be it Parrott or be it Adam Ida, or certainly with McGoldrick, who does it anyway. As someone who can play as a link man as well, back to goal, because that's where we struggle so often. That's where play breaks down, especially when a McGoldrick, or before him, a Wes, wasn't in the team. On the League of Ireland front, obviously no Jack Byrne. Stephen Kenny asked whether we can expect more players from the league under his reign.
Yeah, I think, I'll pick whatever I think is right. I think I think Jack Byrne, I really rate him, actually. He's a terrific passer. He's really a joy to watch. and maybe it's something that he's definitely on standby, and he's one that could feature again, for us shortly. I do think I really like Graham Burke also as well, as a player that maybe would suit playing in the continents more than in the championship maybe at times, and he's a really, really creative player as well. And Michael Duffy obviously has the potential at times to really be he's really quick and direct and scores a lot of goals, and players like that. So there are players definitely who could have an influence, and more to emerge, you would say that,
You suspect he's very genuine there, Nathan. That's not just the token, oh yeah, no, we'll keep an eye on the League of Ireland. Like when he talks about Byrne and Burke there, he's been very, very sincere.
Well, he's probably keeping more of an eye on the League of Ireland than he even intended, because he can't go to games in England right now or for the foreseeable future. So he's at 2-3 League of Ireland matches per weekend. So he is seeing these players, and I think people were fooling themselves if they thought just because a manager coming from the League of Ireland got the Ireland job that they're going to pick 3-4 players. And particularly at this stage, so he has a 23-man squad. He hasn't gone the Martin O'Neill route of naming a 40-man squad. He spoke about the restrictions because of COVID as to how many players they can bring into the stadium. So he's not going to throw players in just for the sake of it in terms of training. It also, because of the timing of the match, could have had quite the impact on the League of Ireland if Jack Byrne was included, because Shamrock Rovers play Bohemians that weekend, and obviously that would have ruled him out of that game. So maybe all that got into it. Jack Byrne probably just shy of the 23 right now. And he said, like, Burke, Byrne and Duffy are the three that come up time and time again in terms of who are closest. But I think, yeah, they're probably just a little bit off right now. It's going to be a really interesting couple of weeks, I think, because this is such an unusual scenario that he's facing into. You touched on them flying out on the Tuesday, getting 2 training sessions. You even look at the Seamus Coleman, Matt Doherty situation, which I'm sure people are going to be discussing again over the next week. Is it one or the other? Could possibly somehow they both play, even though when he talks about playing an attacking 3, it's hard to see how they could both fit in. Seamus Coleman's back in pre-season almost a couple of weeks now with Everton. Wolves pre-season isn't starting till the week of the international fixtures. So Matt Doherty's on his holidays right now, understandably, because Wolves went deep into the Europa League. So his first pre-season training session is going to be that session with the Republic of Ireland. Now, obviously, he hasn't had much of a break. You'd expect he keeps the fitness going, even though I think he had a bit of a tight hamstring when he finished up with Wolves. So that figures into his thinking as well. All these players are coming back from a short pre-season at the end of that rushed sort of 6-7 week spell. So he needs to try and very quickly get them on the training pitch, figure out what his best 11 is, figure out what the system is, and I'm sure he's thought about that in depth, but somehow get that across to his players in the space of a couple of training sessions and probably a few Zoom calls over the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's not easy. We have to have a real degree of realism here, this notion that we're going to see Ireland fully formed in that first game against Bulgaria, and, that it will be any fair version of what Stephen Kenny is aiming towards is a big ask. And I didn't realise that about Matt Doherty. That is tough, because Nuno, as I understand it, basically does not give them a day off at Wolves. They are in 7 days a week. They train incredibly hard. He keeps them at that, whatever that top percentile of your fitness is, he keeps them on it all the time. So you suspect somebody like Doherty then will feel a bit of a drop-off. We'll see how all that goes. On this being a pretty exciting time, that came up in the press conference today, and it was put to Kenny that, well, at least, presumably he's happy that he's got Nations League games before the qualifier.
This is a great period for Irish football coming up, because we've got 8 games in 3 months. And then, so we've got the 6 Nations League games. We've got, hopefully, a Euro playoff against Slovakia, which is, it's a very significant game. The idea is that we'll be in a playoff final. And we've got World Cup qualifiers as well in March. So it's the potential to have a very, very high number of games this year if things went well for us. And it could be a year like no other, and I think, and we've got to think like that, and I think we've got to prepare like that, and we've got to be absolutely very focused on what we need to do, and we've got really good defenders. I think we've got potentially a really creative, dynamic midfield, and we've got cutting edge forwards. So we've got to just make it a cohesive team. We've got to be a cohesive team, and so we're looking forward to the challenge of that, and hopefully we can achieve that.
Slash everything I said, Nathan. Really good defenders, dynamic midfield, cutting edge forwards. My God, we're going all the way.
Yeah, and he has to take these games seriously as well, which he also touched upon, because, right, we don't need to go down the complications of the Nations League, but doing well in the Nations League has many knock-on consequences for the coming years.
Yeah.
But also you'd expect, I'd imagine against Bulgaria, he's going to go with as close as possible to the team that will play in Slovakia. 2 games is what he has to bed in his system. So he needs to get that across on the pitch in actual competitive game time. And also, if there are players from the 21s, inexperienced players who are going to come in and potentially play in that game against Slovakia, they need to start these games. You can't just hold off and say, well, maybe by next year, by the time the tournament comes around, they'll be ready. You get the sense, particularly I think with someone like Jason Malumbi, who you'd have to feel has a real strong chance of starting in Slovakia. He probably needs to play these 2 games in that system, which would be quite similar, I'd imagine, to what he was doing with the 21s with a 3 in midfield. He needs to start these 2 games and then be ready for probably the biggest game of his career in a month's time. So that's a real difficulty, and it's a lot he's going to be putting on the players, and it's a lot he's going to be putting on himself. So every minute he has with these players is going to be huge in terms of what he can get across. And we've heard time and time again of the magic of Stephen Kenny, and you ask his former players, what is it? And they struggle to explain, but there's something about him that he gets across that confidence to go and express yourself on the pitch. And you even hear it there, the way he talks about, there's nothing negative. There was nothing negative today in that press conference about what we couldn't do. Everything is what could possibly happen. They're words, they're potentially meaningless, but I think they're what people want to hear right now.
Yeah, Malumbi was on the show recently. I mean, he's made a huge impact at Millwall, and Millwall supporters definitely wanted to keep him on loan as long as possible. So you mentioned we're probably looking at a midfield 3. James McCarthy, he was effusive about today, Stephen Kenny. James McCarthy of Crystal Palace. We have Harry Arter back in the squad. Jeff Hendrick now of Newcastle. We have Alan Brown, who a lot of people, for obvious reasons, are a big fan of. Conor Cowrahan as well has been very good this season. There's Malumbi. And there's Robbie Brady, who we don't talk about all that much. What's our midfield 3 there, I wonder?
Yeah, I've been thinking about the 11, and I think the defence, if that is the case with Doherty, probably picks itself, where you'll have Randolph in goal, Coleman, Egan, Duffy and Stevens. The midfield 3, I wouldn't be surprised if it was McCarthy at the base and then Hendrick and Malumbi either side. So for the 21s, Conor Coventry played at the base. McCarthy probably isn't our traditional midfielder at the base, because we always think of him more Glenn Whelan, get across, do the covering job. But I think McCarthy can do that, but he also suddenly changes the dynamic completely, because your player in that position is looking to play the ball. He's looking to play it along the ground. And then he'll expect an awful lot from the 2 wingers, who are the 2 either side of, presuming he's back, I'd imagine it'll be David McGoldrick for that home game against Finland and probably for Slovakia, that they need to provide a huge amount of energy. He clearly, he's brought Harry Arter in again because he's somebody who gets around the pitch. I think Malumbi is all action. Absolute all action. It's probably the personality you want in there as well, because it's the one criticism we have of both Hendrick and McCarthy. There's at times a lack of leadership. They haven't kicked on the way we would want. McCarthy obviously curtailed considerably by injuries, but neither of them are the loudest, most talkative players on the pitch. That's not Malumbi. Everything you see from Malumbi, captain of the 21s under Kenny, is that he's not shy in coming forward, is that he puts himself about, is that he provides that little bit of a spark in there. So maybe it's Malumbi or Howrahan for that 3rd position in the middle of midfield, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if he decided actually Malumbi, maybe that a little bit more physical than Howrahan, if you give him the nod. And then I think if you give him the nod against Bulgaria, you have to stick with him. You play him against Finland, provided he's fit, and then you go into that Slovakia game with him as part of the team.
Yeah, there definitely is something in Malumbi that Kenny likes. I mean, he brought him into the Ireland squad when he was freshly back from injury, and to Malumbi's absolute shock, not just told him he was playing, but made him captain, and he flourished. So he has seen something there. On the balance of the squad, then I have 2 last very quick clips from Stephen Kenny's press conference today. 6 defenders in the squad, 8 forwards. He was asked about the general balance in the squad.
Yeah, like the adaptability of players, I think that suits. It suits, I think, and the way I want to play, like we want to play with 3 attacking players all the time, and I think so. Yeah, it suits what we have. I don't see an issue. I don't see a lack of depth in that unless you had 2 injuries at centre back in the same match. I think maybe then then that, you know, that. But we have players who can, you know, that would be quite unusual.
And then the final one, Nathan, Troy Parrott, Adam Ida, Jason Malumbi, we've been talking about them all kind of up relatively recently from under-21s into the squad. So Kenny was asked a bit more about those three.
Yeah, I think some players that have come back after being not involved in the last campaign, you know, quite a few players. But you're right, there's 4 players have come from the under-21s. Aaron Conley, Adam Ida, Troy Parrott and Jason Malumbi, and I suppose that they covered the country really between Galway, Waterford, Cork and the north inner city of Dublin. And I think, you know, they've come through the various clubs, through the great schoolboy clubs in the country and emerged and come through the Irish international teams at all the levels. And now they're in the senior international squad, which represents great progress, you know, in them. I think Jason Malumbi played for Millwall this season on loan from Brighton, very competitive. Really got an all-round game. He's very quick around the park, very, very competitive, great range of passing, and can dribble. So there's an awful lot. You know, he has sort of all the attributes needs to be a midfield player, and you know, I think he's shown come back from a serious injury at such a young age, showing a lot of quality. So he's been captain of the under-21 the national team. Adam Ida is, you know, our most prolific goal scorer at underage level for Ireland. He scored a lot of goals at all the levels. Again, very young, 2001 birth. He's still only under 19, and his, you know, went from Cork to Norwich, and obviously he's finding his way there at the moment, and so he has a lot of potential, and again a lot of attributes, and that he's quick and good movement and holds the ball up well and can has a good all-round number 9 game, you know, as a number.
There we are. So that's the gist of Stephen Kenny this afternoon. I noticed New Balance and all the hoardings behind him there. New Era is the big tagline, which is written about 50 times on that wall, which is definitely trying to capture the general mood. That probably strengthens the case for Malumbi and the points you were making there. I mean, Kenny kind of said he ticks pretty much every box he wants a midfielder to tick, and he was the first name he talked about there, so he's definitely front of mind. Overall, you know what? There's a lot of decent technicians in that squad, and you'd be very hopeful that Kenny is looking at that, saying we can mould something here. We can keep the ball for passages of play and create. So at last we're going to find out and have an actual game to talk about. It feels like we've been looking forward to Stephen Kenny's first game for, well, it literally has been.
It has been, yeah. And it's a good game is the other thing. We'll talk a lot more about it. Like, we saw Bulgaria and Dublin last year for the friendly. They're a bang average team. Yeah. So I know it's away from home.
No great shakes, Nathan, I would say.
No, absolutely not. I don't think they've included their 38-year-old goalkeeper who made his debut at the Aviva last year, unfortunately, in their squad.
Sorry, was this the game where Stewie made the joke?
Had his, yes, yeah. For many people, still the most memorable thing about the game.
So the night of Stewie's joke and Jack Byrne's debut, that game.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yes. They're rubbish.
Who'll ever forget it?
Yeah. So Bulgaria's 3rd of September, that's a Thursday, and then Finland the Sunday 6th. On in the Aviva, I presume, the Finland game.
It is, yeah. An empty Aviva stadium. Yeah. No fans in at all.
I think really the story of the final has to be Hansi Flick. You know, when you read about his story, where he came from, his background, his football coaching career, and how he came into the Bayern job. It's a great story. It really is, you know, to be a Lowe's assistant from 2006 and then the German FA for a couple of years in 2017 and then Bayern assistant manager. And then he takes over a Bayern team that I won't say is in free fall, but is, you know, there's some serious issues there, and they're on the verge of self-destructing, I suppose. Seriously unhappy players, and the kind of the format of an assistant always taking over from a manager and changing things. You'd wonder what was going on behind the scenes between Hansi Flick and Niko Kovac. Was he secretly in meetings, not secretly, but behind closed doors, saying you need to change things, you need to do X, Y, and Z? Or did he keep his cards close to his chest because he knew he was potentially getting the job? And that's always a question that has always interested me when assistants take over and then they change the setup completely. They change training, they change meeting times, they change everything. No, I don't know if Hansi Flick did that, but I mean, look, he would have had some serious problems that he was, I won't say inheriting, because you could say that he was part of those problems, but maybe Kovac was such a headstrong guy that he didn't listen to his staff. I'm pretty sure Hansi Flick has minuted meetings where he was telling Niko Kovac, listen, you need to change this, you need to do this, you need to be a bit less abrasive, I suppose, because that was the shout that he was very, very abrasive and very, very direct with the players, and a lot of the players lost interest in him very, very quickly. So you'd wonder, was he kind of pulling the rug from underneath him as the things were falling apart because he knew he was going to get into the job? But anyway, all that aside, he came in and he picked him up, got Thomas Muller firing again, got a really well-organised, well-drilled team, and implemented some fantastic bits and pieces tactically for them in a very, very short space of time, and became one of the most, I suppose, feared or one of the more deadliest attacking teams Europe has seen for a very long time. Look at the amount of goals they scored.
So I'm picturing the scene now back in October, and Niko Kovac is turning to Hansi Flick and saying, do you think I should put Thomas Muller back in the scene? And Flick is saying, no, he's finished. He's finished. Don't let him anywhere near it. He's done.
Yeah. You want to hear the things he's been saying about you to me, Gaffer. Like, he's absolutely probably either throwing him under the bus there or just saying nothing. I don't know, but it's always a format that always interested me.
That says more about you. You're projecting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I've seen it, because it happens so often. I've seen it so much, and you always see the assistant come in and he's saying, right, clean slate now, we're changing training, and all of a sudden assistant managers change, they become different people, or they try to be something they're not, and it's a weird dynamic. But whatever he's done, he's been absolutely brilliant. And he has been fantastic.
The regeneration of Muller in particular catches the eye, because he has been on the wane for more than just the Kovac era, and he's been kicked out of the German squad. Not kicked out of the German squad, left out of the German squad. He's an extraordinary career. It just looked like Father Time had caught up with him, and he was on the decline and heading, very acceptably for the exit door, and then whoom, I don't know what Flick has managed to do with him, but he's done something.
But see, the interesting thing about that is, I think Hansi Flick was technical director of the German FA, or whatever the equivalent is that they have over there. When Muller and I think it was Boateng were left out, and I'm pretty sure he would have been part of that decision when those guys were kind of cut loose from the German national team. So to get the Bayern assistant coach job, to all intents and purposes from the outside, you'd look in and you'd say, well, Muller has a problem with Flick because, maybe Muller holds him partly responsible for ending his German career. By the way, I'm speculating massively here. I don't know, but these are like scenarios that from the outside looking in, you would think, geez, that's interesting. But then he gets the job and all of a sudden Muller kicks into gear again, so maybe he wasn't part of that decision. Maybe it wasn't his responsibility. But all these questions, and all these the optics from where we're sitting, he managed to turn it all on its head and put together one of the most fearsome units in Europe in recent memory.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The OTB Brief. Everything you need to know about sport every morning. Need to get on top of the day's sports news? Well, the OTB Brief is the only sports update you'll need every morning. With all the breaking stories, post-match reaction.
Can he beat me Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and for the following 2-3 weeks and get the better of me? Probably not.
And the best bits from off the ball, all in a 10-minute podcast.
There's a lot of character to come back and put in a performance like we did tonight.
The OTB Brief with Now TV. Weekday mornings from 7:20 a.m. on OTB Sports Radio. Listen on the OTB Sports app.
Into sports.
20 yards out. Ursh to shoot. Johnson! Oh, what a goal from Fabinho! Wow!
Then get into the all-new OTB Sports app.
I think when he apologises to me, I probably will say hello to him. Yeah, no.
Videos, sports news, live scores, interviews.
If Fabregas is going to come up to me in the street and give me some of the mouth that he would have given me on a football pitch, what do we get a slap?
Plus, exclusive content on the OTB Podcast Network. The biggest names in sports. Ready when you are. Search OTB Sports on your app store and download it now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
It is 8 o'clock on this Tuesday morning. You're very welcome back to OTB AM. If you're just joining us, you have missed Joe and Nathan and a bit of Damien Delaney from last night's football show. Every morning from 7:30 we play out the best bits from the previous night's show. So if you've missed any of the previous night's show, you can always join us at 7:30. The next couple of hours are packed as well, though. We've got Michael Darragh MacAuley in conversation with Ger coming your way in about 15 minutes' time. We've also been speaking to Kellie Harrington. That interview is going to go out between now and 10 o'clock as well. Deal or no deal, as ever, coming your way. Some rugby chat, and Stephen Doyle is going to join us to give us his take on Stephen Kenny's first Ireland squad. OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Ger, how's it going?
Yeah, pretty good. How are you?
Very well. On a scale of 0 to 10, how excited are you for the new Stephen Kenny era after and in isolation of yesterday's squad announcement?
Well, generally I find squad announcements to be pretty dull affairs. I want games. I want actual analysis of how the team lines up because, there are generally, when a squad gets named, there's a possibility of some fairly significant change because of injury or whatever. The one thing you would have wished for really was just include Obafemi in the squad. Just like bring one extra body or two extra bodies and don't have any of this going on. Now, having said that, why did he leave him out? He obviously knows him very well. They've decided that he needs to play some more time with the under-21s or be told you're not ready for the senior squad for whatever reason. And obviously you've got to trust the manager to make these decisions early on. It would have been exciting to have all that young striking talent in the squad at the same time. They've taken the decision that now is not the moment for that there's something that they've seen that they don't like, and that's a talking point. And maybe he's always going to be talking points about squads, and fair enough.
I guess they had to keep the squad as light as possible as well. With COVID restrictions, they couldn't necessarily bring those extra bodies. But it is interesting listening to Nathan and Joe on last night's show and kind of the reminder of Ralph Hasenhüttl's comments about Michael Obafemi in, I guess, previous months and over the course of the last year, questioning his professionalism. But I was certainly under the impression that Obafemi had gone some way to correcting that, actually, that he had had a really good time of it when football had resumed this year. I mean, the headline moment from his club career to date is obviously that equaliser against Manchester United. But it's a bigger headline than a lot of the other forwards have had at this point or have had in the previous season. Like, on form alone, Michael Obafemi definitely gets into that Ireland squad. So it's about more than form. It might be about how Stephen Kenny perceives him to be around squads or his professionalism, but it could also be how he wants to set out his team.
It could be about how he wants to set out his team, and that's certainly the explanation that Kenny reached for when he was asked about it yesterday. The form issue would suggest that, most importantly, Obafemi is a good bit further along in his career at the moment than Adam Ida, than Troy Parrott. And he's making the point that Parrott plays a slightly different role, can play in different positions. And is he actually a little bit ahead of Shane Long at the moment? In Hasenhüttl's thinking, like, is he not keeping Shane Long out of the team more often than not? Look, in fairness, that's to mischaracterize things. This isn't Wes Hoolahan not getting in the team. This isn't somebody who is absolutely nailed on, should be a starter in the team right now. But certainly it feels like he's worthy of a place in the squad on form. So I think you're right to bring that up. And I think you're right to bring up the Hasenhüttl stuff. It did feel like he'd got that out of his system. It certainly felt like he'd knuckled down and had begun to appreciate what the responsibilities of being a full-time professional were, to the point where Southampton have the opportunity to sell him and look like they're not interested in selling him at the moment.
What did you make of his tweets yesterday?
The first one was disgraceful, is that right? And then he deleted that.
Well, the thing is, these are just random tweets, of course. It was disgrace first and then interesting second. He could have been talking about anything. He could have been sitting at home watching Blue Planet. And he could have tweeted interesting because they've got onto the bit with the interesting stuff about the sperm whale or something, and he's like, interesting, and he's just tweeted that out. Like, it's subcontext. We don't know. And then maybe when he tweets disgrace it, maybe it's the episode where Attenborough is describing how there's serious depopulation going on of certain fish or something in episode 11, I think it was, in Blue Planet. We don't know what Michael Obafemi was tweeting about, of course. It could have been anything. Just because it coincided perfectly with the announcement of the Ireland squad doesn't mean it was.
Yeah, he didn't. Stephen Kenny did confirm that he didn't talk to players who were left out of the squad who hadn't been in previous squads. He only talked to players who were being left out of the squad who'd been in Mick McCarthy's previous squad to explain to them what was going on. So Michael Obafemi was discovering at the same time as everybody else, or certainly as the media published the press release yesterday. So I would suspect, I'm going to go out and limb here, and I would suspect that those tweets are directly connected to the announcements yesterday. And as a result, I think, I don't know, like he's 20. I'm certainly not going to hold it against him. I actually think that somebody wants to play and is annoyed when they're not getting the opportunity to play. I really hope he shows up for the under-21s, and I hope he tears up trees, and I hope he makes it absolutely impossible for him not to be included in every squad from this point forward. So perhaps that's what the management team, when they were naming this squad, they decided that they needed to do. The counter argument is that if you have question marks about somebody's application, the best way to fix that is to talk to them and to have contact hours and to bring them into the squad and show them what the other professionals are doing, to show them that this is what the standard that we expect from you now that we're in the international setup. Because bear in mind, the management team know him really well. They've worked with him before. They've had training sessions. They've had matches. They've picked him on the bench for matches before. So they know the person they're dealing with. They know the player they're dealing with. They know his physical makeup. They know any of the issues that there might be. I always just feel like the best thing to do is to work with them as opposed to giving him a kick up the ass, which this may be.
It's not a bad point, and like I think if you ally that with the fact that he's been in pretty good form since football's come back and for the end of last season, I think it makes a pretty compelling case for him. And I guess the excuse that was offered was the fact that maybe Troy Parrott is a better replacement, more like-for-like player when it comes to David McGoldrick's absence. And that was kind of the excuse, but it wasn't really the excuse. Like, I mean, Michael Obafemi is working with the under-21s, was the line. Like, that is where he's going to be, was Stephen Kenny's line, rather than saying we made a very big decision here on Michael Obafemi being left out. So I don't know, like I definitely think that on both sides of the coin it's better to be dealing with these things in private, that Michael Obafemi should be ringing up Stephen Kenny saying it's a disgrace, and Stephen Kenny should be trying to get him on side in private rather than airing things in public a little bit. Now, he did delete the disgrace tweet, but I'm sure like Stephen Kenny knows it's, I mean, people react in the heat of the moment, people send tweets in the heat of the moment, we all do it, and that happens. He didn't necessarily run out to condemn that behaviour or anything yesterday. No, and nor should he. I think, again, this is a very young player who will mature in the glare of the public, and you've absolutely got to give him a bit. I give everybody for stuff like this. Like, you know, there's nothing other than he wants to play here. He feels like he wants to play. It's not like he's got a giant untrammeled ego where he's demanding that he start the game every game because he's the best player that the country's ever seen. Like, he's disappointed that he's not named in the first Ireland squad of the new manager who knows him really well. So he might have thought that he actually had an advantage over players who haven't worked with the manager before because, you know, he's supposed to have seen him at his best. So look, I'm fine with him being disappointed. I'm actually fine with it being public as well. I just feel I would feel better that if he was in the squad, because look at that attacking array of talent. And that's what we've been talking about this morning. It's like, wow, look, they're all in the squad. This is great. This group of 5 strikers could be our group of strikers for the next decade, and we might be very happy about that. That was initially what I thought when I looked at the squad, was this is actually quite exciting. And then you get to the bit where you're like, oh, these are the people that actually don't make it. Like, leaving the Obafemi thing aside for a moment and the weight of the squad, the balance of the squad is in favour of the attackers. Stephen Kenny, we've known this for quite some time, but he just was pretty blunt about it yesterday as well. I'm going to play with 3 attackers, he said. That is as simple as it's going to be. It's going to, I don't know, a 4-3-1-2 formation potentially, or something along those lines, 2-1 I should say, formation. I don't know what it's going to be or what the formation is going to be at home versus away, but when we go on the road over the next couple of weeks and there's going to be no fans there, it could be a situation where you've got 3 proper strikers on the pitch, somebody either side of your front man as well. And I don't know, I looked at that and I'm like, this is really exciting. This is actually a real positive step from an Irish squad announcement, where we've been used to laying into a whole pile of defenders, who's this person, who's that person, the ginormous scale of some of these squads. Now, COVID-19 has helped in that regard, where they have to name a shoestring squad, and that's the players they bring. You can only name that amount. But I don't know, the top line for me was excitement. The second line down was, oh wait, Michael Obafemi's not in it.
I'm looking at the midfield and going, we're going to keep the ball. Like, we've got James McCarthy back, which I'm delighted about, because there was certainly, we've Stephen Doyle on a little bit later on. If you remember Stephen interviewing him last year when he was flaky about whether or not he was going to be back playing international football, and it didn't seem at that stage like it was part of his future. And one of the first things that has happened is that Stephen Kenny has put him back in the team. Like, I presume Seamus Coleman's going to be captain. I presume Seamus Coleman's going to start all these games, but you don't know. It's a new manager, so I hope that the next 4 or 5 years of James McCarthy in the middle of midfield for Ireland suggests that we're going to try and keep the ball. We're going to get the ball from our centre backs, and we're going to be very constructive when we have it. But suddenly, a midfield of James McCarthy, Malumbi, and Hendrick or Brady or Horan as that third player, that's not we're not kicking rush anymore. We're not going to be like hoofing the ball away, desperately trying to cling on in games when it's 0-0. Like, let's see what happens here, and let's see what those attacking players can do,
Sheahan, a very good morning to you. Very, very grainy picture from Monaghan this morning, and a silent video that is grainy coming from Monaghan this morning. We can just about see the orb that is Sheahan's face floating in midair. We'll try and re-establish that connection in just a moment. Will we try one more time? Good morning, Shane.
Can you hear me okay, lads? There, yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yep. How are you getting on?
Got there. Not too bad yourselves. Keeping well. Enjoying the Obafemi chat. It's a pity he's not in the team, but I think the reaction on Twitter has been kind of sums up Irish soccer fans in that the squad is very strong, and yet we're still not happy because someone's been left out. But you're never going to have a perfect squad, really, are you?
I guess it's kind of more of a curiosity as well, that what kind of conversation would we be having if Michael Obafemi didn't send the tweets yesterday? Maybe it definitely adds another layer to the whole thing, for sure. And as I said there already, for me, I'm looking who's in it, and I'm like, this is relatively exciting. And then the Obafemi question is definitely the B side of the conversation.
Yeah, I assumed he was injured when I saw that his name wasn't there, because he's probably one of the first names you put in. 21 Premier League appearances last season, as one of you lads mentioned earlier. He's ahead of Shane Long in the Southampton team, so surely he deserves to be there. But look, he'll work his way back in, you'd imagine.
For sure. What's going on this morning?
Yeah, I guess we'll start with there's some decent, not decent from a Munster rugby fan's perspective, but an update on RG Sneman. So fears that himself, one of Munster's marquee signings over the summer, their second row, could be out for months with that knee ligament injury. The 25-year-old, of course, forced off after just 7 minutes of the Guinness Pro 14 match with Leinster on Saturday. The news is better, though, regarding Leinster's Dan Levy, who has been out of the game for over a year, also with a knee problem. Levy won't feature against Ulster in the Pro 14 at the weekend, but assistant coach Robin McBride has issued an upbeat bulletin on the back row forward.
He's bounced in around the place, literally. He's done so much rehab work, and he's that close to get back to playing. So get that match fitness or get that hardness into him. So he's that close now, and he's got a permanent smile on his face and really enjoying it.
As we've been mentioning, Republic of Ireland manager Stephen Kenny has left Michael Obafemi out of his squad for the UEFA Nations League matches against Bulgaria and Finland. Troy Parrott and Adam Ida have been included, while James McCarthy receives a welcome recall. Kenny says every match they have coming up will have something big riding on it.
Huge opportunity to have the Euros in Dublin and us be a part of that. So that's really, really significant for us. And I think we've also got World Cup qualifiers this year as well. So it's very unique, the three competitions in 6 months, really.
Kenny's former club Derry City are in Lithuania for a Europa League first qualifying round tie against Ritteré this evening. Kick-off in that match is at 5 o'clock. Meanwhile, the selection of Harry Maguire is one of a number of dilemmas for England manager Gareth Southgate before he names his latest squad this afternoon. The Manchester United defender and captain has pleaded not guilty following his arrest and release after an incident in Mykonos last week. Meanwhile, national team captain Harry Kane is in quarantine following a trip to the Bahamas. England play Iceland and Denmark in the Nations League next month. Swedish police have thanked Manchester United defender Victor Lindelof for catching a thief who robbed an elderly woman. They said in a statement that a man riding a bike snatched a bag belonging to a woman in her 90s yesterday in the city of Västerås. Lindelof ran after the suspect and held him until police arrived. Manchester United have confirmed the story. Arsenal have agreed to sign Cedric Soares and Pablo Mari on permanent deals. They both joined the Premier League club on loan in January and will now remain in North London. Mari arrived from Brazilian side Flamengo, while Soares moved from Southampton. To racing, officials are hopeful that today's race meeting at Cork can proceed. It's due off in Mallow at 1:15. There's also a meeting in Bellewstown, with the first off there at 4 later this afternoon. Former Brazil football star Ronaldinho has been released by a Paraguayan judge after spending 5 months in detention over a forged passport. Judge Gustavo Amoria also released Ronaldinho's brother, Roberto de Assis Moreira, who likewise had been held for a month in jail and another 4 months under house arrest in a hotel in Paraguay's capital, Asunción, for the same charge. Ronaldinho accepted the terms of his release, which included payment of €76,000 in damages. His brother, who is also Ronaldinho's business manager, must pay €93,000. Andy Murray is through to the last 32 of tennis's rearranged Cincinnati Masters. The former world number one got past German Alexander Zverev in the second round in New York late last night. He won in 3 sets, 6-3, 3-6, 7-5. It's Murray's first win against the top 10 player since 2017. And finally, for me this morning, lads, Jamaica's health ministry says 8-time Olympic gold medalist Usain Bolt has tested positive for coronavirus. He previously told fans on social media he was self-isolating and that he did not have symptoms as he awaited results of a screening. Bolt held a party for his 34th birthday on Friday, which Manchester City forward Raheem Sterling went to.
Great stuff, Shane. Thanks for that. It is 16 minutes past 8 on this Tuesday morning. We're going to be back in just a moment with Dublin star Michael Darragh MacAuley.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Right, Ross Whitaker's documentary for AIB, The Toughest Summer, airs tonight and features such people as Michael Darragh MacAuley, Michael Murphy, TJ Reid, Katrina Cormack and Aidan O'Mahony and Anne Downey, amongst others. And I'm very happy to say Michael Darragh MacAuley is with us. Michael Darragh, you've been playing a lot of computer games recently. Is that how you've been taking advantage of your free time?
You're letting out my gossip. I might... so I've never owned a PlayStation or an Xbox or any of that sort of stuff. But as a child, I owned a Super Nintendo. So I rebought a Super Nintendo from a second-hand store, and it's been the best thing.
Keeping you sane.
Yeah, I've nearly I've got up to 150cc on Super Mario Kart. I don't know if that means anything to you, but it's it's not easy.
And did you find that it was literally falling off a bike, you could remember straight away what the muscles were and all that kind of stuff? It was so deeply ingrained.
Yeah. So I know, I remember the cheat code on Street Fighter to make it go real fast. It's down, right, up, left, A, B, X, Y.
Right.
And I remember that. Yeah. And that was the last computer I owned, was a Super Nintendo when I was 11 years old.
When you think about it, the human mind is fairly remarkable. If only we had spent our time as kids learning how to, I don't know, do something that was going to, I don't know, maybe I'm completely wrong about this, and actually that's the right thing to have spent your time doing.
You should mean learning Spanish or
the Fibonacci sequence,
Oh, okay, well, that's a different.
Maybe Spanish is the same. Exactly, yeah. I don't know. How are you getting on anyway?
I'm good. Yeah, it's kind of, it feels quite normal. Kind of working 5 days a week, training pretty much similar hours as you would have been with kind of the county stuff, and yeah, I'm back playing a bit of ball, so life feels relatively normal.
What was the bit going back to play Gaelic football? What was that actually like? Because a lot of people took a lot of time to think about stuff and to I don't know, to do a bit of navel gazing. Did you do any of that?
To just take it all in. A little bit. I don't know. I had it was a nice. I suppose the lockdown thing kind of worked out pretty well for me. Time wise, I was coming back from an injury, from operation and stuff, and I think every person coming back from an injury, you nearly always come back a training session or two too soon. So I had an extra month or two nearly to play with to kind of get it right and stuff so that was nice. And yeah, I had no kind of nippers crawling at my ankles, or I wasn't getting stressed out in that sort of way, and I didn't lose my job a lot of people kind of did as well. So it was definitely had a pretty good lockdown as such, because I know it wasn't easy for a lot of people.
I remember after the last All-Ireland final, Jack McCaffrey gave an interview outside, I think the kids' hospital, where he talked about the importance of sport and how you know, he saw the joy that you bring to people on an occasion like that. And it wasn't about putting context on sport. The visit to the hospital didn't put context on sport. It just highlighted how important sport was. And when it gets taken away from somebody who plays at a high level like you do, I'm interested in what that was like, the bit where you get to go back and feel the weight of the ball in your hands. Was it important, or were you like, this is good to have normality? How did that play out in your head?
I actually remember that interview because I think I had come out the week before saying sport isn't everything, and then Jack came out like the week after saying, well, you know what, sport is everything. I was like, damn you, Jack. And he eloquented it a lot better than I did as well, surprisingly enough. What was it? I think I lost the topic there, but what was it like? Just
going back and like, okay, that's interesting. Sport isn't everything. Then going back to it was like, look, no big deal for you. Or actually, did you feel the time away from it did change your perspective a little bit?
No, I think it did, without getting cheesy on it. Like it was nice to kind of give a bit of perspective to things. So I think everyone through the whole March, April, May thing, I think at some stage I was like, all right, well, there's definitely no football, that's not happening. And I was like, oh, it's definitely on, it's on. And no, it's off. And then at some stage I just like gave up on the rumours, or gave up on the gossip, or did you hear what your man said down the country or whatever? And just kind of went with it, and I kind of like everyone was kind of just trying their ass off, and I was no exception, and I'm kind of waiting to see what happens. So like I think you are a bit more appreciative of the ball at the moment. Like you're not even thinking about it in the county ball. Like you will be ready for it when it comes, if and when hopefully it does come. But like I think like I went out to play like a dead rubber game against Whitehall Columkill last week, and I went out with the intention of like, this could be my last game of football for a long time. Like who knows? Like there's a couple of COVID cases that week in club football and stuff, like, so like it's nice to be a bit mindful and present over the football situation.
Yeah, and did you enjoy it? That was the big thing, like the actual enjoyment of the simple act of playing football.
The simple act of attempting to kick a Gaelic football. I think I did, and I suppose it is a thing that can get lost quite regularly. Like when you have to do something like a million times, and like, you know, you forget that you're doing this because you love it, you're not getting paid, and that happens. I think that happens to, like, well, I'm speaking for myself, but people I talk to as well, it happens at every stage in every season, or at certain stages in every season. You're just like, oh, why am I doing this? Like, and then you kind of snap out of it, and you kind of get the graft for it again, and that kind of comes and goes. But I think that this, when it's kind of taken off you, like everything, you're like that kid in the pram when you take the rattle off them, they want the rattle. And I think we were a little bit like that. So we're shaking the rattle at the moment to keep that.
Well, do
you reckon I can keep this baby analogy going for the rest of the interview?
Yeah, we'll try. I think it's easier when you don't have any, because
Crow Park could be the pram. And then
who's pushing the pram?
Oh, interesting one. Maybe John Horan. Does he push the pram?
He's the new dad spending time with his new kid. Okay, fair enough. We're nearly there.
I have a creepy image of me wearing the little bonnet thing, looking up at like John Horan.
We'll get our graphics team on that straight away. And I guess that's what I was getting at, though, because like it would be so many people in the situation that some of your teammates have been, reach a point of their careers where there's no more mountains to climb. You know, you've won absolutely everything that it's possible to win, and to continue to have the motivation to go back and do something, you have to remind yourself that you actually enjoy it, as opposed to, I'm doing this to clock up records or to be part of a panel that wins something. Like, not to be too cheesy, but the mindfulness of actually being present in going and deciding to go back and play for another year. Like at some point you're not going to make that decision. I don't know when that's going to be, but at some point you aren't going to make that decision, because it'll be like, actually, the rest of my life requires more of my time, and it's less enjoyable now than it used to be.
Joe probably doesn't let you use the word mindfulness anymore, just in case you're checking there. But I think so. And I had a good chat with David Hickey, one of my favourite humans on the planet, the former Dublin legend. But he was talking about that as well, and he was kind of saying how but it's a similar, like, how do you motivate to win a second All-Ireland, third, fourth, whatever. But like, and he was just saying it just has to be fun. He's like you just have to enjoy your football. Like you don't need to kick them on the outside of your left boot like I normally do. I know, but he was like just enjoy your football, and I think that's huge for our team this year. Like there needs to be a bit of crack around the dressing room. There needs to have that, like, oh yeah, like people buzzing, putting on their boots, and not just being kind of like obviously drill down on tactics and all that sort of stuff. It's important, but lads need to have a smile on their face. I think this year more than any other year, going out playing ball. Yeah.
And how do you do that for yourself? Like, is it just having to crack with them? It comes naturally because you're mates, or like do you have to put yourself in the mindset to do that for every training session?
Yeah, like I think like it only, like, I don't enjoy football when I'm not in shape. So like that's like any time I've ever like maybe got a yellow card or anything, not that I'm an angel on the pitch at all times, but like it's when you're just pissed off at yourself because you're not in shape, because you're not able to get up and down, and that's not enjoyable. So like I think firstly, like, just get yourself in good nick to kind of do some damage, and not be kind of like struggling, or like you definitely don't want to be a liability to any team. So I think once you have that kind of goes a long way. And then I suppose, look, it's a kind of mindset about how you're kind of structuring the rest of your life around and making sure you're getting everything in. But yeah, like I think it's a little balancing game that we all kind of like spill it over sometimes. But I think at the moment it's kind of pretty easy, because they've kind of all the balls we're juggling, they've kind of taken off the big giant heavy intercounty ball, and we just have like the club ball, and it's just like, that's it, like, let's go at it.
Yeah, which is interesting, isn't it? That like they managed to stumble upon a solution to the age-old problem of how you actually might bring some balance back into the game and make it more enjoyable for the intercounty. Like I think a split season, when it comes, and it seems like it's inevitably going to come, is going to be this magic thing where we have this unbelievably intense period of intercounty, and then there's actually good crack for the rest of the summer where everybody goes back to their clubs and we watch those games, and loads of good stuff is going to happen.
Yeah, like I haven't seen the ins and outs of it, of the proposal, but it makes sense. Like, it makes sense. Like people always feel sorry for the intercounty players during this. I don't know, like, but like I think if anyone who knows exactly what's going on, it's worse for much worse for the club players. Like they get absolutely shafted, having to like get themselves unbelievable shape for April, and then they're buzzing, and then they obviously hopefully win a championship round or two, and then it's like, okay, let's just hit the training ground for another 4 or 5 months, and it could be in the work, in different places at that stage. So yeah, look, it's tough. I think it seems to make sense. The split season stuff is as I said, I hope going to happen at some stage. But you don't know, the wheels of the GAA can move slowly sometimes. So hopefully the cogs can speed up.
It definitely feels like there's a momentum behind that. I want to talk to you a little bit about there's a scene in the documentary where you're doing chair exercise / yoga with a bunch of people who haven't been out of their houses for ages. Talk to us a little bit about this, will you? Because it just was interesting to see you in the environment that is your day job at the moment. And you talked about connection and purpose and how that's important for you and for the people that you're coming across. So what is that project you're involved in?
So I've been working, I think I've talked about it quite a bit, but I'm working with the Northeast Inner City, which is a project, kind of a generation project going on in around the kind of general Dublin 1 area. So I'm kind of just signed up my 3rd year at the moment. And it's across the board. Like, I'm involved in the kind of community and sports side of things, but it's across the board, from addiction, employment, infrastructure, education, everything. So I suppose the thing that they kind of featured in, like, I just thought, like, that when they asked me to get involved in the show, I just thought it'd be nice for some of the older folk to kind of see themselves on telly. I just thought it could be a bit kind of novelty for them. And so I think it was one of those things that, like, people, like, we immediately felt sorry for the cocooners, people who had to, like, were just shoved in their prison cells come flats, and were like too scared to come out. And like it was tough, and we were kind of asking ourselves questions about what are we going to do to try and help these guys, as much as we're trying to do bits for the youth or whatever. Like, but yeah, like, so we decided, like, on Wednesdays that we had a fella come in and he played a few tunes, and they literally just come outside the door and sit down outside their step and listen to a bit of music, and then play a bit of bingo. And then on a Friday I come in and we go around to like 4 or 5 different kind of retirement home settings, and I just do yoga with them every Friday. Yoga, I think I used to call it chair exercise, because yoga used to scare some of them off. But it was great. It was great, and it was literally like as much for. Some of them hadn't been outside their house in like weeks, I suppose, like, because they just didn't, the messaging was tough for them, and they didn't really get a hold of it. So it was nice just to see people enjoying them, and it's much about the kind of crack and that kind of connection piece and having a little bit of purpose about their day, even if it's once a week, to kind of do something like they're not going to be doing headstands anytime soon, but they're kind of enjoying it. Yeah.
How is the job going for you? Because I think you were in this time. Maybe it was October last year, talking about what the day-to-day was like. So you've obviously signed up again. So what is it actually like? How's it going?
Yeah, look, it's going well. Like there's a huge amount going on in the area. Like I suppose we've been trying to like play on the outside of these kind of guidelines at the moment, which are tough. But like we've been running like basketball camps, GAA camps, and have kids kayaking every week and all that sort of stuff. I'm just trying to provide from that side of things as much opportunities as possible for people. And then like there's loads of things going on. Like obviously, like addiction and education, and there's different schemes and grants and different things going on to try and bring the area up as well. And it's 100% going in the right direction. But yeah, there's obviously still a bit of a way to go. Yeah.
Do you feel like it's possible to make a difference?
Yeah, and like I got real pissed off. I was talking to a guard around the area recently, and she was just she'd given up, and she was just like, "Oh, it'll never change." And it just that whole attitude kills me. Like that like I don't know why you're even in your job. If you just have kind of no faith in things, I think you have to have a bit of faith that things are going in the right direction, and that you can actually do something. Like if you haven't, like if you wake up at 9 o'clock, whatever time you wake up at, and by the time you get back to bed, like you have to have made a difference somewhere. Like so and it's the only thing that kind of like would make me sleep easier at night, if you kind of feel like you've done something.
Like I it's funny because I agree with you, right? And I actually do think that a small condensed area can actually make really rapid success quite quickly if enough resources are thrown at it, and if enough opportunities are spoken about, and if projects are highlighted. Like even if you just look at something as simple as cycling in the city at the moment, how lockdown happened, and a month and a half in, all of a sudden they just started making extra cycle lanes everywhere. Like straight away, no ifs, ands or buts, no massive committee meetings, no like grandstanding, no motoring industry able to get in and say, It's like they just did it.
Yeah,
all of a sudden, it's much safer to cycle, particularly in the north inner city. That's a huge change. Really quickly.
Yeah, like I suppose it's a great example of quick change, because I cycle the roads every day, and I was like, I never thought they'd be able to even fit these cycle lanes in. So it's great to cycle around the place now, and I think because people wanted that change and said, shit, this actually has to happen now. Between the Green Party going in, between the ecosystem the way it is at the moment, that kind of change had to come. So and the COVID obviously thing just kind of multiplied everything. So yeah, look, I suppose we need kind of all hands in when we're trying to kind of bring up the whole area in general. So, and not just, I suppose it's something that we've talked about. Like people we don't need, like when I talk to businesses around the IFSC and they kind of want to get involved and like to help out, like it's like people don't need another set of jerseys, or we don't need like a gate painted. Like people actually need jobs, and actually need like a purpose and an exercise, like a clear a way to how that you can kind of beat that kind of like multi-generational kind of trap where people aren't getting jobs and kind of aren't getting out of this, are in the same cycles. So that's where we're trying to encourage businesses to do and be a part of. Yeah.
So actually try and address the structural issues as opposed to putting a badge on or sponsored by, which is great, but actually
no. It's great, and if you're a business around the area and you want to, and you should feel involved, because you should be getting involved in your community, and it's really not about like people kind of paint a gate and maybe clean up a field and feel great about themselves, and look, that's great. We all need these things as well, but I think it's more important that to get involved in a kind of long term or medium to long term of like, how can you get these people in your employment? If you're hiring hundreds, maybe thousands of people, like maybe there's 4-year transition year schemes, maybe there's summer projects, maybe there's kind of mentorship roles that can be done. So like a lot of that is important as well.
That's the only way it's going to change, right? I had one last question about this. I'm sure the political parties are looking at you going, this is great. He's got the profile of being a Dublin footballer. He's got the social justice aspect of this. Away we go. Suck him into our system. Keep him there. That's a safe seat for 20 years. It feels to me like you might be able to achieve more outside of the political system, especially as you come towards the end of your career and and are doing. Now you've got a bit more free time, maybe in a couple of years' time, 3 or 4 years' time. And see, I'm going to stretch your career out till you're 40 there, right?
For seven or eight, surely.
Seven or eight.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, if you get sucked into politics, I would be really worried. I just think that, like, the political system at the moment, as we see, is not exactly fit for purpose. I don't know if you feel like you're pushing a rock up a hill in the system at the moment without political power.
I think you're getting at a pretty relevant thing there, that it's tough, and I don't envy any politician. I know, like, as much as like the last week was just mental, and an absolute was mayhem for the government, but it's not for me. But at the same time, to make change happen, they need to be on side as well. So I think like at the moment we're working with kind of political powers to try and make things happen as well. And like Pascal O'Donoghue is from the area as well, and he kind of ties in with the project regularly and stuff. So yeah, like but I think a lot of people, when they kind of get sucked into it, they can be sucked into it. Yeah. Is this what you want to do at your time? Is this like because it seems to be year on year at the moment, and obviously you're unbelievably busy in trying to chase the 6 All-Ireland and whatever else comes after that. So, like, is this who you're going to be for the next 10 years, do you think? Like I always said when I took on this role, because people, especially in kind of disadvantaged areas, even when I was working in my school in Tala, that I think people sometimes can find it hard to kind of build trust when they've had trust broken a lot of times. So people were like, I thought I was in here for like a couple of months and be gone again. And I was like, said it like, I'm down here and that's what I am. Like, I'm down here for like that. That's what I'm doing. Like, I'm down here 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and every Saturday, and that's what I'm doing. And I'm not looking past it at the moment. Do you know what I mean? So that's where it's at. Who knows where the future lies? But at the moment, like it's the only thing on my agenda. Because there's a real thing about volunteerism as well, and sport bringing people into volunteer. I would be concerned that people are going to volunteer less into the future, especially as they get worried about the impact of this. Like, in disadvantaged areas, it can be difficult to get people to volunteer, and you've got to get that culture going. And yet at the same time, there are amazing boxing clubs and there are amazing dance clubs and dance studios that have come from that part of the city in the past as well. You kind of think, I don't know, it's a big job of work that you have, but I also would suspect you're pushing an open door with the community too, who are just crying out for a little bit of help. Yeah, a little bit. I think, look, volunteerism can be an issue. Like I see that we're kind of trying to get a basketball club up and going, and I think I appreciate it now, looking back at how my own club was formed in Rathfarnham, like, and how much people like you kind of forget about, even in Ballybowden, my club, like what is it, like about 100 people give up their Saturday mornings to kind of throw kids at footballs, throw footballs at kids, but I apparently kind of underappreciated that, because sometimes it's harder to get those volunteers, and it's not for a lack of want. Sometimes there's the single parents, sometimes there's extra jobs that have to be done, there's this and that, and there's reasons, but yeah, volunteerism can be an issue with trying to maintain things, because like money won't be there forever. It's been funded at the moment, but money won't last forever, so these things have to kind of run by themselves as well. Yeah, of course. Well, look, it sounds like it has connection and purpose, certainly on a day-to-day basis. The football itself, are you actually, what do you feel is going to happen in the season? Do you think there will be a season? Yeah, hopefully. As I said, I think a few times during that kind of April to kind of May thing, we'd be like, all right, it's definitely on, definitely off. So I think it's as I said, it's a kind of like it's a nice place to kind of be out with it. Like I think people are just like getting themselves in shape, getting ready, doing all the extra little bits, and come on May, like I think as I said, like we had basically a friendly there kind of last week, and just went out and specifically went out to enjoy that game. Like it meant nothing, and I was like, let's enjoy this, because like who knows what's going to happen. So it's hard to know. Like it's gonna be a balancing act, unless they like do an NBA job and throw us all in the bubble, throw us in a Greenacre or down to what's that called, Centre Parks, and like and then yeah. I mean, that would make good TV, I'm so game for it, yeah. It's an interesting social experiment, though, isn't it? Like, I'm sure you're up to date on the NBA bubble stuff, but they had, like it cost like 180 million to run the bubble, but and they all have to like go around with like like little like tag watches, and like they obviously do the tests every morning and take their temperature checks all the time. But then they kind of, if they want to scan into a door, like like that has to make sure the temperature is right. And then there's like proximity meters. So if I've been talking for you too long, my thing starts beeping and I have to leg it away. But there's so much pressure put on them that like they don't want to be the one that like breaks the bubble. So it's like a kind of social thing going on. It's interesting.
It is really interesting. Yeah, I mean, compared to what's happening where our TDs are all off playing golf with each other and hanging out and drinking. It's like it is definitely a very interesting social experiment this whole time, and living through it. Do you feel like it, at the moment, it feels safe playing club football? Do you feel and hope that it? Like I don't know how everybody feels, right? But it feels to me like most people are going about their day-to-day lives and generally being fairly good about the social distancing and wearing masks when they need to, and that I really hope we're going to have an inter-county season. I think it will be important at some point from a general kind of sense of well-being that some sort of normality is going on. It feels like we're going to get that, and I wonder how you guys feel. It'll be safe, and it will be safe to do so. If say the inter-county season started next week, would you feel safe going training and playing matches?
Like personally I would, yeah. And but I think like what's going on now is that like everything that we do in our life and in our personal life and social life is going to take on an element of risk. And but with that, like that we have to, like you have to kind of negotiate, is that risk worth the reward for everything? But you have to, like, we have to live our lives at the same extent. And I suppose I'm in a situation where I suppose if you'd asked me a couple of years ago when I was living with my dad, who would have been like very vulnerable at the time, maybe I wouldn't have been in the same situation. Maybe I wouldn't have felt as comfortable going to train and trying to come back and maybe bringing that disease into my house. At the moment, I'm obviously not in that situation at the moment, and I'm healthy and I'm not kind of just being as smart as I can given the circumstances. So it's I think like we just have to kind of try and live our lives as best we can. I know, like, we actually got a talk off Jack Lambert, who's the COVID specialist in the Mater over infectious diseases. Like, and like I suppose it'd be easy for him to be really conservative and just say like, oh, don't do this. There's a 1% chance. Don't do this. But he was just like, look, we have to try and live our lives here. We have to try and work our way around this. Like, this isn't going away tomorrow. So, I thought that was refreshing that he just was just emphasising the fact like that we just have to try and take on an element of risk at times and try and navigate it as best we can. Yeah, it's like trampolining or getting in cars. There's an element of risk involved, apparently. So it's a fair point. It's a totally fair point, and I hope you're right. And look, I hope you stay well as well. Documentary The Toughest Summer airs on telly tonight. AIB's Toughest Summer. Michael Darragh MacAuley, thanks very much.
Yeah, really good stuff as ever from Michael Darragh MacAuley there, Ger. And that point that he makes about Dublin 1 and not the lip service that people pay, but the idea of donating jerseys or painting fences and encouraging people to do more is a really good point. But it's something that will impact positively on wider society if people take up that motto as well, that this idea that, you know, the lip service that we pay about certain social issues is not enough. What is the real action? What are the employment problems that are going to be fixed in Dublin 1, for example, and what are those similar issues when it comes to other social problems around the world as well?
All of our social problems in Ireland come back to one issue, and that's poverty. And if we were to eradicate poverty in Ireland, all of our education system issues, all of our health issues, all of our employment issues, all of that would all be eradicated really quickly. If we all just decided that we wanted to stop accepting the fact that it's okay for us as a country to have poor people, because it shouldn't be, because we're so small. We're such a small country, like a really, really small. We're not even the size of a major city as a country, and we've got all these amazing resources in our laps, and we're like, well, it's grand for us to have housing estates with 90% unemployment or multi-generational unemployment in family units. Like, it's something that you can literally fix with an injection of resources and education and a little bit of care. It doesn't take that much. It actually, and from an economic, even if you're the most extreme right-wing economist, it makes sense from an economic point of view, apart from the fact that, you know, morally it's the right thing to do. And it's bizarre to me that we just don't decide we're going to fix this. We're going to fix all those urban areas that need it really quickly. In 20 years' time, all of this is going to be a really great place to live. And we've done it from the following ways. And that's why I think people like Michael Darragh MacAuley, who could really just having a nice life as a high-profile Dublin footballer, and could do nothing with his time and influence, is going in there and is helping to be a leader in his community and in his city. And I think, I think it's great that he's doing that.
Yeah, no, he really cares, that's for sure. There's no question about that. We've still got Kellie Harrington still to come later on today. We've got Stephen Doyle chatting about Stephen Kenny's first Ireland squad, and Deal or No Deal, a bit of rugby chat coming your way later as well. But now, it's time for the sports pages.
OTB AM.
At 8:44 on this Tuesday morning, we're going to start with OTBsports.com. Jordan Larmour was uncomfortable. That is Keith Wood and his analysis of Saturday night's game. Damien Delaney, meanwhile, says Hansi Flick has been absolutely brilliant. Going out west, meanwhile, Caulfield targets Galway promotion inside 18 months. And Katie's her own worst enemy. Kenneth Egan talks Taylor Pursoon and looks to the future. Going to start, when it comes to the newspapers, with the Irish Examiner. Ida and Malumbi in as Kenny's Ireland takes shape, writes Brendan O'Brien. Sheridan says, I'd never disrespect League of Ireland. That is, of course, Waterford manager John Sheridan, which we'll come back to in just a moment. And John Fallon reporting this morning that the FAI are still seeking concessions on changes to council. The FAI admitting that a standoff exists on the necessity for council members with 10 years or more service to immediately retire. This is a sticking point that has been brought up over the last couple of weeks, and the FAI are looking to manoeuvre this rule on the 10-year term limit. There is, of course, the EGM next Monday, so they'll need to clarify that before then. John Fallon also reporting that the FAI also wants to abolish a clause barring all former board members from ever serving on a committee. That includes directors in place before the John Delaney era commenced in 2005. The Irish Independent this morning leads with a photograph of Stephen Kenny, but the main story here is new Dundalk boss flies in for kamikaze mission. We will come back to that momentarily. The football writers in Ireland yesterday were very, very busy people indeed. Their headline on the Kenny story is Kenny insists he's not fazed by Obafemi squad reaction, and Cian Tracy writing that Munster prepare to be without Snyman for a lengthy spell. Emmett Malone's got all the stories here on the front page of the Irish Times sports section because of that Dundalk element of things. McCarthy set for anchor role as Kenny lays out his vision. Dundalk take gamble on unknown Italian, and early signs of evolution but no revolution from the new man. That is on Stephen Kenny as well. The Herald goes with Kenny stays calm, Ireland boss unconcerned at Obafemi response. Chelsea meanwhile backing Frank for £220 million. I think you can call it off already at this point. Chelsea are the winners of the transfer window. It looks like Havertz and Thiago Silva are on their way this week. The London Times leads with Usain Bolt. His party sparks scare for Sterling. So Usain Bolt has revealed that he may have COVID-19 after a surprise birthday party that was attended by Raheem Sterling, one of the most high-profile attendees of this party that took place over the course of the last few days. You also had Bayer Leverkusen attacker Leon Bailey and cricket legend Chris Gale at the party as well. So quite a collection of characters. Gareth Southgate a little bit concerned at the moment. The Irish Daily Mail leads with the headline, a no-brainer. We'll play with or without fans, says Michael Darragh MacAuley. Meanwhile, on Stephen Kenny, Philip Quinn goes with McAteer's criticism of my coaching is not relevant. Of course, Jason McAteer speaking on this show last week, talking about his beef with Brian Kerr and how his League of Ireland experience and lack of high-profile management at club level didn't really cut it for him, and he has a few concerns over Stephen Kenny, but Kenny saying that is irrelevant. The Irish Mirror goes with have it. Blue set to splash out £90 million on German ace Kai, and it's Chilwell and Thiago next in record £220 million spree for boss Lampard. Meanwhile, they say, I don't really care what McAteer has to say. His criticism is irrelevant. That is Stephen Kenny on the same subject of Jason McAteer's criticism. And I'd play in front of Desi Farrell and his dog. Let's get going, says Michael Darragh MacAuley. The Irish Daily Star goes with Duff Luck. Looks like Shane Duffy won't be going to Celtic at this point. Their pursuit of him has been put on hold as Neil Lennon closes in on a new deal for Motherwell's David Turnbull. Meanwhile, Kenny hits back at McAteer. Even one man and his dog will do for Michael Darragh MacAuley. And €245 million, Chelsea to break the bank. The Irish Sun, tab of the morning to you. Oba reaction. Kenny giving kids a Troy. Stephen Kenny believes Troy Parrott can sit on the top perch, but admitted the 18-year-old is lucky to be in his squad. Blues have their man, meanwhile, is their headline on Kai Havertz. And Steve's glee at Jeff on a free. Jeff Hendrick on his way to Tyneside. The Daily Telegraph leads with a photograph of the cricket. Anderson on the brink. The main story is regarding Chelsea. Their deals to take spree over £220 million. Same photo of the cricket yesterday. The main story, though, on The Guardian is Harry clings to England hope. Maguire's trial in Greece gives Southgate squad dilemma. And Chelsea closing in on £90 million, Havertz and Silva for free. Finally then, the Racing Post. On top of the world is how the front page goes, and on the back page is in a league of their own. Best bets as Premier League darts returns. Sure, 6:30 tonight is kick-off time on Sky Sports, keeping you going between now and the restart of football. This Saturday, by the way, just a quick aside, is the Community Shields. And then we're into the internationals, and then we're into the Premier League. Like, enjoy these 4 or 5 days of not having football at all, because that's all you're going to get. So stick to the darts for the next few nights. Will we start with Dundalk?
Do you count the Community Shield as football? Because I don't.
Ah, yeah.
It's not. No.
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
I'm Jose Mourinho here. Count every single trophy.
No.
Like, I would, if I was a chairman of a Premier League club, I would set up a B team, send them into League Two and enter the Johnstone Paint Trophy, and I would count that as a trophy for my first team.
Owen,
yeah.
I would rather watch darts than the Community Shield.
Oh, that is a statement and a half. It's so. What is it? What is this? Brexit at Wembley or something? Is this what you're going to follow it up with? Is that your punchline?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even have it. Sometimes the punchline is best left unsaid, as you know.
Sometimes indeed. Let's talk about Dundalk. As I say, football writers yesterday, fairly up the walls, it's fair to say. We're going to start with the Irish Independent here. It's covered across all the newspapers, by the way, this morning. New Dundalk boss files in for kamikaze mission. A kamikaze mission is in quotes here, Ger. It is a quote.
Because this is sensational work from David Sneyd or Dan McDonald. Whoever of them got access to the WhatsApp group that the new Dundalk manager is part of and has seen his own text describing his own new job as a kamikaze mission. Well, that is top quality journalism. Call the search off Sports Story, Sports Scoop of the Year is a kamikaze mission.
In messages seen by the Irish Independent, G.L. MacAuley told friends that the news was crazy but is true, likening the task with a kamikaze mission, asking his friends to pray for him. This is sometimes journalism works where you have to build up a relationship with somebody and then, I don't know, get access to something that they might be happy to hand over to you, and then you don't name that source and you get a great story from this. This guy, I'm not sure has he set foot in the country yet, Filippo Giovagnoli, the new Dundalk manager, but already Sneyd and MacDonald have an in on that WhatsApp group, which is remarkable. So this guy was appointed yesterday as successor to Vinnie Perth. Vinnie Perth, quite a controversial sacking. People could see perhaps why he got sacked after not a great season this year. A lot of people thought he had enough credit in the bank. And then you could have also made a very reasonable case that who are you going to get that is going to be better than Vinnie Perth in the current setting? And there was reports that Dundalk were looking into Robbie Keane over the last few days, because Dundalk said that they wanted to appoint somebody from a green list country to avoid the barbed wire that you might have to step on in order to get a manager into the country at this point. So if you couldn't go to a green list country, why couldn't you go to an Irish manager, would be my way of thinking at this. Like, you can avoid the whole scenario about checking on whether or not Italians can come into the country by appointing an Irish manager or somebody who is currently in Ireland or working in Ireland, or whatever the case may be. It seems that Dundalk called off the Irish search immediately after Robbie Keane. Now, I know there have been a couple of other names mentioned, but there is a little bit of a bang of Robbie Keane, one of the most high-profile Irish sports people there have ever been. Can't get him, then, you know, screw the Irish, let's go and try and find somebody else from a different country, because Italians know a hell of a lot more about football than Irish people do. There was just a little bit of a bang off that of the decision by the American owners at Dundalk to go this way.
It's remarkable to me that Vinnie Perth got sacked having won the league last year, first off, right? And there was talk of unrest in the dressing room in the weekend papers. And I was like, that doesn't really make any sense, because obviously the players in Perth seem to have a very strong bond over the last while, because he's been there for so long, and he's he's been a part of the club's success for such a period of time. But it turns out the unrest, again, more details from Dan today and David Snade in their piece, a bunch of randomers have started appearing at training who apparently have been signed by the American owners. And some of them come from the same university college that the American owners had gone to. Players who might not necessarily be of the standard to play professional football, who are suddenly appearing at training and being given game time or appearances in squads. And you're like, oh, okay. So what's happening is the owners are interfering in team selection. And it's a very short rope whenever a manager starts to begin to experience that. And look, I think Vinnie Perth's been done a bad turn here by the American owners. If you think back to the excitement that they were going to invest money, this was a club who had everything right, that they had a managerial structure in place where the next manager was going to come from within the squad, and they were going to build a boot room style succession plan, and they played brilliant football. There was going to be investments in the ground. There was going to be a proper training ground, because this was an attempt to build a European team who was going to play successfully in Europe season in, season out. And now it looks like they've signed somebody who doesn't really have much managerial pedigree. I wish them all the best, and it's possible. Sometimes these coaches have been stuck for whatever reason in a system, and they're actually far better than the job that they have. That does happen. We've seen that happen in sport, and people have made huge leaps forward when there's been some block in opportunity or whatever that has prevented them from taking the next step forward in their career. And you've really got to hope for that club and for the League of Ireland, because bear in mind, this is one of the most important teams. They've been the most important team for the last 5 years, and if they don't put it up to Shamrock Rovers over the next while, then, you know, is what Bohs are doing at the moment sustainable? I hope it is, because that would be good. But, like, we need a strong Dundalk. We absolutely need a strong Dundalk for the domestic league. And if this manager comes in and doesn't hit the ground running, then, like, what's going on?
I should say as well, just on my point about them kind of stopping the search after Robbie Keane, I should just say, to clarify, Mark Kennedy also had discussions about the role that came to nothing. So, in fairness, it's not as black and white as they just stopped after Robbie Keane, but there was definitely a bang of, let's go for the high-profile Irish person, and let's perhaps not dig into what other resources might actually be around the League of Ireland or what other resources might be around the club at this point. What's been interesting here is what Vinnie Perth has also had to say, just on your point about his departure, and there are still a lot of question marks about what actually happened here, because according to this piece from the Irish Independent as well, Perth has refused to deny persistent speculation that there has been boardroom attempts to influence team selection, which is the first sign that a club is not being run well, when the division between board and actual in-dressing room management, when that division gets blurred, when influence tries to come from too high above the manager, things can never run well at this point. Like, there's a huge sense that this is really a move that the Americans did want, and there's kind of, I guess, a self-interested element to this as well. Just a quote from this Independent piece as well. They talk about Gio Vagnoli, and coaching commitments had previously taken him to America. We know that he's the AC Milan summer camps dude, the former AC Milan summer camps runner. In 2014, he was appointed director of coaching for Metropolitan Oval, an academy that is affiliated with MLS side New York FC. It is understood that Dundalk's principal owners, Peak Six, have a good relationship with the company that runs that academy. So that, I guess, illuminates why this guy was plucked out. They go through the messages, and it also kind of details a lot of things here about a bit of an American influence that's coming into Oriel Park here as well, in terms of players, that the owners were keen to bring in players from the US collegiate system. And I guess there's been a few eyebrows raised at that. The one other element of this which was interesting was that I saw that Gio Vagnoli was bringing in Giuseppe Rossi with him as his assistant manager. But Emmett Malone, in his piece in the Irish Times, says Gio Vagnoli is to be assisted by though sadly not the Giuseppe Rossi. So that really burst my balloon this morning. The pair have worked together for several years at Metropolitan Oval Academy in New York. Neither has the pro license that they technically need to manage at Premier Division level. But the club is actually not short on pro licence holders, as both Alan Reynolds and John Gill, who took charge of the first team between them at the weekend, as well as opposition analyst Shane Keegan, all hold the qualification. You've got people in your own club that have pro licences, and you've gone to get a fellow who runs AC Milan summer camps who doesn't even have a pro licence to manage your team.
I wish them the best, and I really hope the three lads actually end up in charge of the football operations inside the next 6 months, because that would be the best outcome here.
For sure. Let's talk quickly about John Sheridan. We covered this last week, Ger. He's your favourite character in the League of Ireland at this point. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, as I said, Dermot Looney was like, he's the comic book villain that the league needs, and he's denying that actually he disrespected the league. He says, no, I mean, I wouldn't be here if I was disrespecting the league, would I? Like, I absolutely would not be doing this job in Waterford if I thought that this league was a pub league. There's one standout line, though. He was playing a game. You might have heard, Vinnie Perth might have heard him say something, but actually, he was just broadcasting for a very tiny audience, and that audience was his players. And if he did say it was a pub league, which he probably didn't, he says, if he did, it was only because sometimes you have to play the game with players. He's a player. He's playing us. And when I think about it now, he's playing chess and we're playing checkers, Owen.
He's operating at a whole new level. You know that meme where it's like society, where it shows a futuristic picture, or like something from Back to the Future where there's hovercrafts going. You know that picture that exists online? That is the picture if John Sheridan was president of the world. He is just so ahead of us. We would have time travel by now if it was put in the power of John Sheridan the world. I never said the league was a shambles, by the way, is what he said.
Yeah, and I said it was a pub league. I never said it was a shambles. I mean, get your facts right. Did he say something about Vinnie Perth losing his job? He seems to have Vinnie's a good manager. He's going to get he's going to get a job in football again because he's done well at Dundalk. But everybody loses their job. It's like, did he actually say that? Did he say
I don't want to see any manager get sacked, but everyone loses a job at some point. This is a direct quote.
Was that in defence of him having said something about Vinnie Perth's job to Vinnie Perth?
Well, no, he said that he will get another job. I think what he was trying to say is that there's no kind of hard feelings between himself and Vinnie Perth. Vinnie will get another job because he did well at Dundalk. So he took no joy in him getting sacked, basically, is why he said what he said.
Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. We're nearly out of time, but I wanted to just very briefly touch on the most important global football story at the moment. Lockdown is over, officially and metaphorically, for Ronaldinho, who for the last 5 months has been in the Paraguayan justice system, and for the last 4 months has been under house arrest in a luxury hotel. Himself and his brother got arrested 5 months ago. They arrive off the plane, I think from Brazil to Paraguay, and when they arrive, somebody mysteriously hands them new passports.
McLovin.
This is important. What?
The McLovin passport.
Well, these are the two. These are the Paraguayan ones that they've got, which obviously just happens. That's his name is actually on his passport, Ronaldo. Obviously, because he can't be Ronaldo publicly because there's already a famous Ronaldo who, incidentally, looks exactly like his brother. That's his brother on the top. That's not the original Ronaldo. The hair, the curly hair is like, all right, and the shape of the face. But that is his brother, who is his business manager. The two lads arrive off the plane anyway in Paraguay. They're over for some charity gig, like whatever. I'm sure, the kids of Paraguay are very important to the Ronaldo brothers' way of thinking. And somebody mysteriously hands them these new passports. For Ronaldo, this is very important because in 2019, he had his Brazilian and Spanish passports whipped off him for illegally building on a nature reserve. So if somebody's giving you passports, you're like, this could come in useful at some point in the future. I might need this if I want to ever, get away from whatever trouble follows me around. And trouble obviously seems to follow poor young Ronaldinho around. Gets to Paraguay, gets these passports, thinks this is going to be a great trip. A little bit later, there's a knock on the door, and it's the police force who are like, we think you might have some fake passports going on. What's the story, lads? And they find them, and they whip them away to jail. But actually, they put them in proper high-security Paraguayan prison for a month while the lawyers are trying to work out some way to get out of trouble for Ronaldinho. And eventually, they bail is set, and they pay bail. And they're like, okay, well, you're going to be under house arrest. Well, we don't have a house. So, okay, a luxury hotel, $350 a night suite for the two brothers, one each. Lockdown starts, and all of a sudden the hotel is completely empty, apart from the two Ronaldinhos. And reports suggest that they were having quite the crack. Karaoke sessions late into the night, people coming and going quite a lot. It doesn't specify who those people were or what kind of parties they were bringing. But his lockdown seems to have been one of the most adventurous and tabloid fodder for the whole of South America, apparently. At one point, he was in prison with the former president of Paraguay's Football Association, who'd been jailed for money laundering. He was sharing a cell block. So a remarkable story.
Yeah.
All's well that ends well. Paying 100 grand each, essentially. I think it's 70 grand for him and 110 grand for the brother. And away they go. They're getting their own passports back.
Which documentary would you watch first? Making a Passport Forger, the story of Ronaldinho's journey to Paraguay, or Dundalk Till I Die, the inside story of Dundalk and their American owners?
This is a good question. I think I might split screen them. They both sound pretty good.
Amazon and Netflix need to get on that ASAP. I should say as well, Oisin Lang has been in touch to say that there is no break in football. 3 Irish teams in Europe this week, so you don't even need the darts. Sure, of course, Derry City in action tonight, as Shane Hannon was telling us later on. That is it for the sports pages this morning. Plenty happening as ever. There's also the news, which we didn't really have time to get to, that Cool Camp's success, which is one case of virus from 71,000. It's Colin Keyes' piece. Kind of, Michael Foley touched on it in the Sunday Times at the weekend as well, just kind of pointing out the huge amount of people that have gone through the Cool Camp system and done so pretty successfully from the GAA's perspective. Micheál Martin as well, essentially saying that the championship will go ahead and that the current measures have saved the championship, speaking to Claire Byrne yesterday. So that's covered across the papers as well. Right, let's have a look at what's coming up on the OTB Sports app, or what is on the OTB Sports app right now. Make sure you go and download this on the Google Play Store or on the App Store if you haven't got it yet. You've got the radio tab there, the stories tab. Everything that's happening in the world of sport will be covered there, including our own content there, OTB AM live video there every single morning in the video tab, and the podcasts. Tons and tons and tons of podcasts every single day. And the quickest place and the best place to get them is the OTB Sports app. Right, up next we'll be talking to boxer Kellie Harrington right after these.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
This week on Dadcast.
My kids are now wandering around the kitchen helping themselves to all sorts. They have copped on to this weekly hour where they realise Daddy is somewhat incapacitated and
can't give out to us.
Put that in the bin for me.
Dadcast with Cadbury Freddo Treasures. Tuesdays from 3 p.m. on OTB Sports Radio. Tune in on the OTB Sports app. OTB Sports, in partnership with Cadbury FC, are kicking off a brand new series of in-depth chats with some of the biggest names in Premier League and Irish football history. To get the ball rolling, Republic of Ireland goalkeeping legends Packy Bonner and Shay Given will sit down with host Joe Malloy for an intimate chat, which will be coming your way on August 27th across OTB Sports social channels and on OTB Sports Radio. If you want us to put your question to Bonner and Given, keep an eye on OTB's channels to find out how to get involved. Search OTB Sports in the App Store for more.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
So, the launch of European Week of Sport 2020 at the Sport Ireland campus has taken place. The European Week of Sport is a week-long celebration of sport which promotes physical activity in people of all ages, backgrounds and fitness level. Sport Ireland is calling on you and your family to get out and hashtag be active between the 23rd and the 30th of September. And who knows, this may be the start of a newfound love for sport. Visit sportireland.ie/European Week of Sport for more information. And Kellie Harrington is with us as the ambassador for this today. Kellie, how are you getting on? You probably don't need to be part of an active week. I guess you are pretty active at the moment.
Yeah, I'm pretty active. It'll be an active. Now, it'll be a week probably before I go away for competition, so I'll be active enough. But yeah, it's a week of just basically people getting out there. We've already been doing it through this whole pandemic, but just getting out there. It's not a week for, well, it's not a week. You don't have to be involved in sport or be an athlete or anything like that. It's for all ages and all physicalities wise, I suppose. And it can be anything like a brisk walk, just getting out there and getting active basically for the whole week. And then if you are involved in sport, it's for the likes of going and trying different sports also and seeing how you get on with those, and it might open the door for something new and something beautiful.
The research came back from like last month anyway, certainly for the first 8 weeks of lockdown, it turned out that people weren't so much locked down as getting out and walking and cycling and doing physical activity at a level that we'd never seen before in the history of the country, certainly in terms of the time that we've been measuring it. So clearly people want to be out there and they want to be active.
This is exactly it. And if anything, I think from this whole pandemic and the lockdown and stuff, it has made us realise that we don't need to own a real expensive gym membership to be fit or to get fit. You know, there's plenty of things that you can do out there that cost absolutely nothing. Like you said, cycling, sea swimming, walking, fast walking, running, all those kind of things. Dancing at home in your living room, for God's sake. You know, plenty of things that are free, and you're being active. You're getting some health benefits out of it, physically and mentally.
We heard the story of a high-profile jockey who, over the course of lockdown, took up running, and he was a stable jockey who, whenever the big ride on a very famous horse would come up, he'd kind of get passed over a little bit because he would struggle to make the weight. And over lockdown, he started to run. And at one point, he got up to running 100 kilometres over the course of a week. And now, all of a sudden, he's found, because of the running, that he's able to make weights. And it's going to completely change his career because he's going to get the opportunity to ride some of the biggest horses in some of the biggest races in the world with like massive prizes on the line. All because lockdown came, he got a bit bored and he went out and started running. So, you know, I'm not saying everybody's going to change their lives, but they might.
But here, it's crazy that it took a pandemic to get up and do that, isn't it? To realise that. But I tell you, it's absolutely amazing. Best of luck to him. But this is exactly it. People were stuck at home, had really nothing to do, and plenty of time to do it. So, I mean, they could have sat at home and probably got too much into their head, or they could do a bit of exercise and free up their mind, free up a bit of space in there to allow them to think clearly. And get away from the TV, looking at all the bad news that's going on the TV and stuff. So it was really great to be able to do that. And I just hope now, from the 23rd to the 30th of September, that people will really give this a push, whether it's virtually, because we're going to have stuff obviously virtually for those who can't do it physically with us, but hopefully by then we might be able to have a few camps and stuff set up and running if there's no guidelines and stuff, if we can go back to, yeah, you get me drift.
Yeah, some small gatherings, yeah, totally. Come here, Kellie, I'm wandering around. I live in Marino. Eoin lives very close to me as well. He's probably seen the same posters I have. There's a couple of people who community in Dublin have turned to. Michael Darragh MacAuley is one of them. You're another, and Mrs. Brown, I think, is the third poster that I've seen. A new Holy Trinity. We actually had Michael Darragh MacAuley on the show a little bit earlier on as well. What's that like for you at this stage of your career, wandering around and looking up and seeing your face on a lamppost and going, okay, right, you know, I'm now officially a role model for my community?
I suppose, because I'm actually born and reared in Dublin 1 for starters. So to be a role model for my community really means a lot to me, because I know what it's like to grow up in the inner city, and I know the challenges that I had when I was growing up and how I overcame them. And for me as a kid, like, I would have seen people going to boxing clubs and stuff, and that was my inspiration, was to get in and to follow them. But for kids coming up now, they're seeing me plastered everywhere. They're seeing MacAuley plastered everywhere. So like, they know who we are, they know who he is, and they can look into the background. And like, if you really want to know about me, everyone in the inner city knows about me, so they can look back and they can say, well, Jesus, like, if she was this age and this is what happened to her at that age, and she overcame all of that crap in her life, and she became are you still there? It's just the internet connection.
Yeah.
And she became basically a great sports person. And I think for a young person, for me, if I had seen me when I was growing up, I would have been very inspired, and I would have looked up to me. So I think kids are going to do the exact same thing, and not just kids. There is adults out there also. During this pandemic, I've been doing a couple of things online. Like, I have a Facebook page. I'm not that great with social media. I don't really know the whole ins and outs of it, but I was doing a couple of classes online, and I had a few people doing the classes. But I also started, because I am an ambassador for the North East Inner City, and I started doing a class there. Once they said that we could have 15 people in an outdoor group and scenario, then I started doing outdoor classes for older people, not for kids. And reason being is because, like, some of these older people, they probably weren't doing anything even before the pandemic, you know, and then the pandemic happens and they can't even get out to the shops anymore, really. Do you know what I mean? They're really, really crammed up in their house. So as soon as this was over, I done the class, I started doing these classes, and they started to come, and I didn't think they would, you know. There was people that I never thought would do it. My own ma comes along to the classes, and she's like buzzing, you know, and like, just, there's a nun actually and all who comes to the class, and she was concooning and everything. She's over 70, and she's doing the classes. It's just amazing. They come in, they're like little mice when they come in, really, really quiet, and you want to see them by the end of the class. They're like teenagers. They're absolutely buzzing. They're like, the spirits have just lifted. They're glowing, and they're like, oh Jesus, because it's only half an hour. And they leave, and they're like, oh, we could have done an hour of that today, Kelly. And I'd be like, yeah, well, if you had done an hour, you probably wouldn't come back to me next week. So I want you here next week, and I want you up, and I want you moving now. And that's the thing, you know, like, and I just, that's what I want my role to be in the community, is someone who's trying to, like, just trying to get people up and moving, and basically helping people smile and feel good about themselves, and just socializing again, like, because we can do it if we keep our social distance. Our social distance, we can socialize, you know, and that's what I wanted to do, and we got it up and going, and it's really rewarding for me to be able to see people out chatting and laughing and saying, oh, we're so glad you done this, thanks so much, you know, like, it's amazing.
And what sort of stuff are you doing in the classes? Because it sounds great.
I'm doing, like, so we've like little 1 kilo hand weights. We hadn't got weights at the start, but I got weights throughout the classes, and it's literally all it was. We start off with you know, the Casper slide, you know that song?
Yeah.
One hop this time, one hop this time, tower. Well, like, I started off with that, like, so we do that as a warm up, like, and that's exactly it, in the back of the football pitch, and we're laughing. And then after we do a little warm up, I'll do 4 or 5 rounds of Tabata. Like, it's on YouTube, you can get all different songs. It's 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off by 8 like, and then we have the dumbbells, and I just have them standing square, punching for 20 seconds, drop the weight. The next one, it's punching without the dumbbells, and like stuff, I'd call out combinations like left, left, right, and I get them to shout it out with me, and they loving it, you know, like, absolutely loving it. And I got me dad, which I never thought I'd say me outfit. So I had him up, and I had him in the class, and he was only after finishing work, so he comes in with his bloody gloves on his hand, his mask on his face, and I tell you now, like, we didn't get anything done because the whole class just kept laughing at him, because he has no coordination. He's like two left feet. I'm telling you now, just hilarious. The crack we got out of it, but he was laughing as well. You know, like everyone got a good enjoyment out of it. Even though we only got a little bit of exercise that day, we still all left there happy and feeling good. You know, and that's what it's about. Like to me, that's what it's about, and that's what my role, and that's what I want to do as a role model, is to be able to lift people and help people, and if someone needs a dig out here and there, to be able to do that for someone.
Kellie, could I ask, do you still get that same happiness out of many of your sessions as an elite boxer? Like, because that's when you get to a very high level in sport, the fun can often go out of it. Do you still identify with that happiness after even just half an hour of a session like that? Like in my own training sessions? Yeah. Absolutely. I like when I go to my boxing club, I'm nearly short of moving a bed into my boxing club because I love it. Like I love the morale in my club. It's different to that of the morale in the institute, if that makes any sense. Like it's more of a family in the boxing club than it is in the institute. And when I leave my club in the evening time, it's really, I'm happy, and I sit in my car going home, and I'm really relaxed and I'm happy. And it's the same for kids in the club. Like if a kid comes into the club, like this kid might have been at home. You don't know who you're getting into the club. They're from all walks of life that come into a boxing club. And you could have a kid who might come into a club and might not have got much attention through that day, or, you know, like the parents are too busy working and no one to help him with his homework or her with her homework, and she comes in or he comes in and he does this bit in the club. He doesn't just walk out that door. The coach gives them a shout and he says, "Good night, Josephine," or "Good night, Tom. Well done." That's a pat on the back for that child. He goes out there thinking, "Oh yeah, like the coach knows my name and the coach knows what I worked hard tonight." You know, that's the feeling that you get in a club, and it's like that for me as well. Like I get that, like that's when I'm leaving the club, coach would say, "Well done," and I'm like, "Yes," you know, like I've put the work in and it's good. Like I love it.
Is that Corinthians Boxing Club? Are you still in Corinthians?
No, that's where I started. That's where Corinthians is in the inner city. I started with Corinthians, but I'm out in St. Mary's in Tallinn now at the moment with no work out there. And we're back.
And we're back.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Just now.
Did you hear me?
Sorry.
Did you get that answer to that question?
Not the end of it. No, just the start of it.
Yeah. So I started boxing with Corinthians Boxing Club. Obviously, at the time when I started, nowhere around in the inner city would take females. And I tried for a year to get into Corinthians, and I got in, and I was with Corinthians for many years. And now I'm with I'm out in St. Mary's in Tala with Noel Burke. I've changed out there, moved out to Tala. I didn't move to Tala. I moved out to the boxing club in Tala.
Very good. Yeah. Because to talk a little bit about where your boxing career is at. Obviously, the Olympic Games were scheduled for this year. We should know now what the scenario was with regards to that, and we should be celebrating hopefully at this point. But obviously, got kicked back a year, and recently you talked about how it kind of felt like this was a little glimpse of retirement for you. So do you have in your head exactly what's going to happen in the next 12 months for you? Are there plan A, plan B, and another scenario? Have you thought about going pro if the Olympics don't happen? What's the latest?
So basically, like in the whole run up to the last Olympic qualifiers, I've taken everything in baby steps. So yeah, while the qualifiers are the main thing, obviously in February, March, for me now the next thing is I'm focusing on October, the possibility of having a competition in October. I don't need to get any medals out there. I just need to get out there. I just need to get some fights, perform, see where I'm at and whatever. If the Olympics happen, it will be absolutely fantastic. If they don't happen, then they don't happen. I just move on. The possibilities of turning professional boxing, it's a business, and like I haven't got a business head on me. I'd go professional if I'm getting a good contract, like a 2 to 3 year contract with a so many fight deal and plenty of money, and it would have to be plenty of money, because I've given enough time into this sport. I've been 15 years now boxing, and if I'm not going to put smaller gloves on me on and no head guard to get punched in the head for buttons. It's not worth it. Or to have to sell tickets, that's not worth it. So I'd rather stay amateur, or I'd rather pack it in altogether, if that's the case. But like I said, if someone comes along and says, here's a lovely 2 to 3 year contract, so many fights, you're going to get this much money, and it looks tasty to me, I'll be like, thank you very much. So yeah, we'll see. Who knows? I might never get an offer. I might get an offer. I might never get an offer. But we'll wait and we'll see.
Right, because I was just about to ask you what.
But the way women's boxing is going now,
No, honestly, could continue there, because I think I was just about to ask you the same thing, that in terms of the way the sport is trending at the moment, there might be more and more of an opportunity of that sort of contract coming as the months and the years go by.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just saying there. So the way that women's boxing, professional boxing is going now, there might be an opportunity of that happening. If it does, that'd be great. I'd be delighted. I am 30 now at the moment. I'll be 31 in December. I think 35 would be a nice age to retire at, if needs be. So we'll see how it plays out. Again, do you want this, do you want that? It'd be nice to become a world champion, but it'd be also nice to be a well-paid world champion, or someone being well-paid on their way to becoming a world champion. So unless I get well-paid, I won't take it. And that's with or without an Olympic medal.
Well, I was going to say, it's obviously much easier to be an Olympic gold medalist and then have 4 years to build up to being a world champion at 35 and ride off into the sunset. It all sounds like you've got a career plan in your head.
I have. Well, not to hear me, I have. It sounds like that. I never even knew about it myself, to be honest with you, now when I say it. But I'm just going with the flow. Whatever happens. Like, at the end of the day, I have my little job in St. Vincent's in Fairview, my little cleaning job, and I mean, if the shit hits the fan, I'm happy enough working there. Do you know what I mean? And I'm happy enough. I could imagine that I would probably get a job with the council, maybe, or I'm going to throw it out there, but it may never happen, with the boxing association. That's probably, like, people probably going, ooh, that's risky, but you never know. Either way, whatever I do, and I'll be content with it.
Having the ambition to coach in the Boxing Association is really interesting, because I'm not sure, did you see that piece written by Sean McGoldrick a few weeks ago, where he details how successful we've been with young female fighters in this country, but how when they get to a certain level, there's kind of a make or break moment where a lot of them just aren't getting funding at the moment. And I assume that prevails all through the different levels of boxing in Ireland, and that includes coaching, that the benefits of investing a little bit more in coaching, hiring new coaches, hiring former World Championship medalists to come in and actually coach kids in Ireland is a huge positive step forward that the association could take over the next few years.
I don't really get the question as such, what you're asking me, but I'll answer it the way that I think you're asking. What I will say is, not every great boxer makes a great coach. So I'm a good boxer. Will I be a great coach? I don't know, but I don't expect to just be handed a job from the association. There you go, Kelly, there's a job for you. We'll put you in coaching. I expect to be trialed and tested first, for me to know, am I any good? Do you know what I mean? I can't just step up to the plate and think, I've done my trade as a boxer, I'm ready to go as a coach. Many coaches have done years and years of hard graft, voluntary, unpaid, and then they get to where they are. Some coaches never boxed in their life and become fantastic coaches. You know, like some boxers were great boxers and are crap coaches. You know, so it's a I don't expect anything to be handed to me. I expect to earn, if I do become a coach, I expect to earn my right to be a coach and to be tested by the high performance selection to see am I actually any good at being a coach, because while I would like to be a coach, doesn't mean that I'm going to be good at one. Like, we have to see first, and I would not like to go in and have so basically, I wouldn't like to be put into a team with myself and all the other high performance athletes and say, now there you go, Kellie, you're in bloody Brendan Irvine's corner tonight and he's fighting in the final of whatever. I would absolutely crap my bag. So you have to earn your spot, earn your stripes.
I guess my point was, is there a pathway for young coaches in Ireland, and is there the money there to do it at the moment?
I'll be honest with you, I haven't got a clue, because it's not something that I am looking into, you know. Sure. So at the moment I'm just focusing on me and on my boxing. See all that other crap that you got on me just from that little one question, and I'm there like yeah, so I don't know. I haven't been looking into it, so
What did you make of Katie Taylor's performance against Delphine Pursoon the other night?
It's very good performance from both fighters. They gave it absolutely socks in there. So it was great to watch, and it was nail biting stuff. It had me looking through my fingers at one stage, you know. What I really think, like, what I like about it is it's a fight that's been very public, and everyone has, like, a lot of people have seen it, you know, and there's a lot of young boys and girls now watching that, and families watching that. And for me, my hope is from the 23rd to the 30th of September, it will give people the itch to get out on the European week of sport and test the waters out, and even get out and do a bit of shadow boxing. Because we'll get out now after seeing that and try a bit of shadow boxing, or a bit of, if we're allowed, then do a bit of pad work maybe, you know. Ching!
Classic. I think that you've got many different types of career available to you whenever you do decide to retire. And like you obviously didn't think, yeah, right, I'm this bit of lockdown, I'm finished. I'm happy now. I'm going to walk away from this. You've definitely got at least 4 or 5 years left in you. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, Jesus, yeah. Like I have, like, if I want 4 or 5 years, I have 4 or 5 years left in me. It's just about basically, I have 4 or 5 years left in me, but it's about seeing what people are going to offer me after next year. Do you know what I mean? If there's offers there, and then go from there. Like, I'm very happy. I'm very content at where I am in my life, and whatever I choose to do, I'll be happy enough doing it anyway. So,
well, here's the question then about style. Like, because obviously we've seen even Katie Taylor come in for some I don't know if it's criticism, but analysis that suggested that it has taken her quite a while to change from being an amateur to a professional, to sit down her shots was the phrase that kind of rings the most, and to use her power as opposed to using the amateur style of trying to score points. Is your style suited, do you think? Is that something you've thought about? Like, whenever somebody comes and says, oh, we'd like to offer you a contract, but we're just, you have to convince us here, Kellie, that actually you're going to make it as a professional. Have you thought, yeah, actually, I've got a plan in place for that, and I box the style I box at the moment because that's what wins me fights in the amateur game, but I totally understand that it's a different prospect. Is that something you're thinking about?
Like, I mean, in the amateurs, it's amateur fighting. Like, I don't really know. I haven't actually thought of that. But I mean, I can fight, and I can, like, styles make fights really, and it depends on who you're in with. Like, if you're like, I can box better than I can fight. So if I'm in with a fighter, I'm not going to fight because, like, I can box better than I can fight. So I'll box. you know. But if I'm in with a boxer, I'll box and I'll mix it up when I need to mix it up. And I think that would make for interesting boxing, really. Like, there wouldn't be too much of a change, but I would definitely need to, like, I'm already working on me inside game anyways, so that's something that I have been working on. So hopefully everything changes, really. Like, I suppose the 2-minute rounds to 10 2-minute rounds and everything, like, you're going back then, we used to do 4 2-minute rounds, now we're doing 3 threes. So, I mean, rounds are ending a lot quicker. Like, is the pace higher for 2 minutes or is it slower for 2 minutes because you have 10 rounds, you know? So you have to take all these little things into account, you know, like I don't know. I didn't think that the fight the other day was slow for 2 rounds. I thought the rounds went really quick, but they were very fast paced rounds, you know? So yeah, you have to take everything into consideration when you're thinking of your style and what have you, and what are you going to offer to the pro game. Like, I suppose you have to really test the water with your first couple of fights and see how it is, see how you go for 10 rounds, really. Well, not 10, you start off obviously 4, 6, 8, and then whatever, like, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
For sure. Well, listen, Kelly, it's always great to talk to you. Best of luck with everything, and thanks very much.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
It has just gone 9:35 on this Tuesday morning. Breaking news from Munster Rugby. It has been confirmed that the province's new South African debutant, RG Snyman, who went off injured after 7 minutes on Saturday night, has sustained an ACL tear. We feared the worst over the last few days. The worst has been confirmed. He's torn his ACL and he's going to meet with the specialist next to discuss surgery and management of that injury. This is coming from an official Munster Rugby statement. The statement also gets into the injury sustained by Dave Kilcoyne and Jean Klein. Now, Kilcoyne has suffered an ankle ligament injury and Jean Klein has suffered a neck ligament injury. So 3 bad injuries there for Munster. The RG Snyman one obviously looking like the worst. An ACL is a disastrous injury for any athlete, not least one who's just played 7 minutes for their new team.
This is an absolutely brutal outcome for Munster Rugby. The first game back, 2 serious ligament injuries. There's been no time frame put on either of the 2 ligament injuries coming back, and then we know just how long it takes to come back from an ACL. I think anybody who saw that line out and saw the replay feared immediately. It had all the trademarks of an ACL injury, and you know, no one really wanted to say it, but for him to get 7 minutes and for in those 7 minutes, in the very act within which he does his ACL, to be the stealing of a line out, the dramatic introduction against your most storied rivals, for you to be already physically dominant in the first play is like, oh, this is a real this is the future, and then for it to be taken away. Like, I mean, as somebody who is not a Munster fan, I was genuinely excited about what the prospect of this Munster team was beginning to shape up with, given that their beefed up coaching ticket had the opportunity to think over the last number of months about how they were going to use their resources, and for the 2 South Africans to have arrived and to have bedded in and to have been fit and well enough to play and to start from the very get-go. We talked just last week about how the rest of Europe was undoubtedly taking note of what was happening in the High Performance Centre, and now it's going to be so difficult for them to make up for this, because when John Klein's injury is going to take him out of commission for the foreseeable future as well. So all of a sudden their strength and depth in second row is wiped out in one game, the first game back. Like, you know, we talked about the return of the Bundesliga and the return of the NRL, and we're seeing now with training camp in the NFL, a lot of players doing very serious injuries themselves. And you do wonder if that's just as a result of a little bit of rustiness around the pandemic, or if it's just that sport didn't happen for so long and now we're seeing these high profile instances. It's really, really disappointing for Munster fans. It's really disappointing for him as well, because that's the next 12 months of rugby, as we've been talking about, are going to be the 12 of the busiest and highest profile rugby months. It's the Lions coming to South Africa, the world champions, and you would have hoped that he had established himself as like a swashbuckling force to be right in there in the mix for a starting position against the Lions. So Oh, look, I'm sure it's devastation for Munster today.
For sure, yeah, that summer for him next year is immediately in doubt, without question. Right, OTB Sports, in partnership with Cadbury FC, is kicking off a brand new series of in-depth chats with some of the biggest names in Premier League and Irish football history. To get the ball rolling, Republic of Ireland goalkeeping legends Packy Bonner and Shea Given will sit down with host Joe Malloy for an intimate chat, which will be coming your way on August 27th across OTB Sports social channels. Check out cadburyfc.com for updates on promotions and giveaways. Right, we're sticking with football. Stephen Doyle, how are you getting on?
I'm good, thanks, Owen. I'm very motivated after listening to Kellie Harrington. Thought it was a brilliant interview. And a real inspiration. You know, we talk about, I think we sometimes get caught up in the elitism of sports sometimes, don't we? And when you hear a brilliant Irish sports person like that giving so much back to our community, I think it's really inspirational.
It's been a Dublin 1 special on the show today. Kellie Harrington was talking there about taking out some of the old people who live in the area for boxing exercises. You're going to see tonight on the AIB's The Toughest documentary, Michael Darragh MacAuley doing exactly the same thing. It's called chair exercises because he thought the word yoga would be too intimidating for them. My prediction after the documentary tonight is it's really good. It's beautifully shot. Ross Whitaker's obviously a storied filmmaker and has done an excellent job. But my prediction is that by 11 o'clock tonight, Michael Darragh MacAuley's yoga pants is going to have its own Twitter account or potentially its own Instagram account. And certainly, it's going to feature on TikTok a lot. They are absolutely spectacular. If you tune in for no other reason than to see MDMA's yoga pants tonight, you've got to watch.
I haven't seen these yet. I'm dying to see them now. What are yoga pants, Joe? What do they look like? Baggy? Are we talking MC Hammer here? You can't touch this?
Yes. Do you know... Do you know when Homer gets so fat he has to wear the dress, the muumuu?
Yeah.
If you imagine they were turned into the same size, they were turned into narrow at the bottom and narrow at the waist, but in between, flapping in the breeze. Same color, same design. I'm like, going there.
Well, thankfully I don't need them yet anyway.
Shall we segue from yoga pants to Michael Obafemi?
Really smooth. Oh,
how much forgiveness do you have for a 20-year-old who tweets disgrace at a team announcement?
Yeah, I have a lot because he comes across as quite a bubbly character, possibly emotional. I don't know the guy inside out, but from what I've seen, he seems like a really good guy, like the kind of guy that might wear his heart on his sleeve. And I think he might, well, I'm sure he already regrets, as we know, he deleted the original tweet and put out another one with a couple of laughing emojis, probably hoping to think that, or probably hoping people will think he's just having a laugh. I have a couple of theories on it. I heard Nathan speaking to Joe last night on Off the Ball about Obafemi, and I think he made, all the points Nathan made were really valid. I also think that Jim Crawford, our under-21 manager, has 3 matches left to qualify us for an under-21 tournament for the first time ever. And if Stephen Kenny was to swoop in and take all his best players, it doesn't give much hope to qualify for that tournament. We're top of the table. We still have to go away to Italy, who were our toughest opponents so far in the group. We got a 0-0 draw against them here in Dublin, a really good 0-0 draw, and we should have, in fact, won that game. But I think having a player like Michael Obafemi, a Premier League striker who has scored goals in the Premier League, in your under-21 team, when have we ever had that? That's an incredible addition to that squad. He will also have his Southampton teammate Will Smallbone possibly in that squad as well. He hasn't played for the under-21s yet, but I'd imagine Jim Crawford will pick him for these last 3 games. The other thing as well about Michael Obafemi, there's a couple of other things. We know he had that serious hamstring injury last year, and that kept him out for a lot of time. And I think that he needed a full pre-season with his club to get him prepared and get him ready for what he's got ahead of him this season, because this could be a real, he has played well, of course, last season, scored goals in the Premier League, but this could be his proper breakthrough season in the top flight. The other thing as well about Michael Obafemi, I still think he has a bit to learn about the role of a striker. And Stephen Kenny spoke about this yesterday, that he wasn't he didn't have the attributes maybe just yet to play that role as the lead striker that maybe Adam Ida has already. And the thing about Michael Obafemi, and I watched him in a couple of games. I remember the Arsenal game specifically, that they won that game against Southampton. But Michael Obafemi was playing alongside Danny Ings, and I found there was a lot of times where Obafemi was getting into the space in the box that Danny Ings should have been occupying. And Ings got a little bit frustrated during the game. I saw him, he was getting a little bit ratty with Michael Obafemi during that match. And I just think because he's such a young striker, he still has a little bit to learn about the role, about where to be, what position to be in when the ball's coming into the box and that kind of thing. So I think he still has a bit to learn. I think Kenny is aware of this. So I think when you factor in all those kind of reasons, I think you can see why Kenny would leave him out of the squad for this match, or for these two matches.
That's an interesting observation, because obviously he'll be going from a front two at Southampton really to a front three with Ireland, which Stephen Kenny has made no bones about. From what you've seen of Stephen Kenny teams, how does the number 9 operate for Stephen Kenny's team? Because yesterday he made the point that with McGoldrick out, Parrott perhaps had greater importance, because Parrott is quite similar to McGoldrick in that he can play with his back to the opposition goal in a fairly effective manner. But that is how Dave McGoldrick played for Ireland under Mick McCarthy, and that is more what Mick McCarthy expected of his 9. Like, is that what Stephen Kenny's also going to expect of his number 9?
Yeah, I think McGoldrick definitely is the type. You see, it depends on, because Kenny can play. He's used the 4-2-3-1 formation with the under-21s, with Malumbi and Coventry as his 2 base midfielders, and having the likes of Connolly, Parrott, and who's the other player I'm trying to think of now? But Adam Ida then as the lead striker. So he can play that. He can play the 4-3-3. But as you say there about Dave McGoldrick, he is, I suppose, that striker where he can hold up the ball. He can play with his back to goal. He's a good distributor. He can also drop into midfield as well, which Stephen Kenny spoke about yesterday. So I think McGoldrick is definitely the perfect number 9 for his team. But I think I give Adam Ida a real chance of starting that game against Bulgaria. I think Shea Long will also be under consideration, because he had such a good finish to his season with Southampton. So I think it could be up between those two for that number 9 role while McGoldrick is out.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting as well what he said about Troy Parrott. He did say about Troy Parrott that he wasn't in the squad initially. So that's like just a little kind of maybe a motivation for the lad who's on loan at Millwall, just to say, just because you're in this squad now doesn't mean you've made it. You still have to prove yourself here.
So it seems that Troy Parrott is at the bottom of the pecking order when it comes to Irish forwards in that squad. How do the rest of them order in your view?
Yeah, I was just kind of looking through the squad list there again this morning. Shea Long, I think Shea Long and Adam Ida will be the 2 main choices. But it depends now, is he going to play a front 3, or will he play an attacking trio behind the striker? So he could have Adam Ida and Shea Long up front with, say, the likes of James McLean, Aaron Connolly. He might even play Harry Arter in that hole, because I was, he's been lauding praise on Harry Arter, lavishing praise, I'd say, on Harry Arter for the last couple of months. And again, yesterday, he spoke about how he could play with 2 feet. He said it was actually hard to see what foot he played with, because his left foot was so strong as well. So he could play Harry Arter in that hole, maybe flanked by the likes of James McLean or Aaron Connolly on one side, and maybe you could even have Jeff Hendrick on that right-hand side. Troy Parrott can play along the 3 as well. He's played out on the left or behind the main striker as well for Stephen Kenny. So he has a serious amount of options. Like, it really is incredible. Alan Brown is another player who could play out on wide of the striker. Robbie Brady, of course, as well. Let's not forget about Robbie, such an experienced player. So I think with the midfielders and the forwards he's picked, he's got an array of options. I'm really excited about this squad, I have to say.
I definitely agree with you. The way he's talking about Harry Arter is starting to suggest to me that Harry Arter is in with a really, really good shout of actually starting one of these games as well. And I guess the same has to be said of Adam Ida, the way he's been talking up the 2 of them in particular. So how do you see that midfield constellation going then? Because I think somebody we all want to see get minutes for Ireland at the moment is Jason Malumbi, and he's possibly the most excited we've been about an Irish midfielder in a few years at this point.
Yeah. See, it depends, I think, on whether, well, look, if he starts someone like Adam Ida, if he starts Aaron Connolly, is he going to throw in another, young, less experienced player like Jason Malumbi? There's a possibility that he could play. Like, it does seem set that he's going to play James McCarthy as his central holding midfielder. He said that's the best role for him. So, look, he could play, maybe, if he doesn't play Harry Arter in that hole behind the striker, he could have Harry Arter on the left side besides James McCarthy, and possibly, Jeff Hendrick or Malumbi on the right-hand side. So I don't think, I'm really excited about Malumbi as well. I think he's, let's not, get carried away and say he's going to be like a Roy Keane style player for us over the next few years, but he's definitely got those attributes. And I thought one other interesting thing Kenny said about Malumbi yesterday was that one of his weaknesses maybe was the fact that he got booked so much, but he said he didn't want to change that part of his game. He likes that destructive part, that destructive nature that he has in his game. And that's the kind of dominating midfielder that we need, a midfielder with a bit of character, the kind of character maybe James McCarthy and Harry Arter don't have. That's not to take anything away from those two players, because they've got different qualities. But maybe that's the kind of ingredient that Molumby has to his game that will get him a start in this opening match against Bulgaria.
The Jeff Hendrick question comes with the caveat that he is going to be a Newcastle player. Like that, he is a Newcastle player. It's done. It's a done deal. This is a move that is probably more encouraging than could have been the case for Jeff Hendrick. There was a possibility out there that perhaps he could have dropped down a division. Of course, there were big eyes coming from abroad as well. We weren't sure how legitimate those links were. But Newcastle is a good move, Steve-O, especially if he manages to break his way into that starting team regularly.
Yeah, definitely. The only thing about Newcastle is we don't know what manager is going to be there next season. We don't know if the club's going to be sold. That all seems to be still up in the air. But let's look at it from the point of view where Steve Bruce is still there and things haven't really changed. I think he's got some good players in there with him, especially the likes of John Joe Shelby, who I think is one of the best English midfielders that I've seen over the last 10 years. He's just maybe had issues with discipline and, maybe his work rate and that kind of thing. But John Joe Shelby is one of the best midfielders that has been produced in England over the last decade. He's a brilliant passer of the ball. He's such a good reader of the game. And I think playing alongside somebody like John Joe Shelby will help bring Jeff Hendrick along. The one thing I'd like to see with Jeff Hendrick, and it's something I think has been a weakness in his game over the last couple of years, I'm surprised, especially playing under a manager like Sean Dyche. Maybe Steve Bruce will be able to encourage it with him, but I think his work rate and tracking back and helping out with defence is maybe one of the weaknesses to his game. And I think if he could improve that, I think he will become a better all-round midfielder, because we know Jeff Hendrick can be good going forward. He's a good passer of the ball. And again, he just needs to start getting a bit more confident with his shots around the box. Like we've seen, he can score goals. He can score really good goals, but he just needs to take a lot more chances. And the other good thing about Newcastle is that they were so impressive last season. I commentated on a few of their games. Actually, the opening day last season, I did Newcastle against Arsenal, and they got beaten, and they were absolutely terrible. It was a wet, cold day in August on Tyneside, and you worried for Newcastle, but they just came on leaps and bounds under Steve Bruce, surprisingly to everybody. And they weren't just a defensive side. He switched around the formation to bring in Alan Saint-Maximin into the team a lot more, so he could play out in his wing position. And in the second half of the season, and especially after the lockdown, they showed that they can be a really good attacking force, and they're not just a team that just bed in and try to win points off the other teams around them. So I think it's a good and exciting move for Jeff Hendrick.
Yeah, it certainly is. Just letting you know that OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We're going to be getting to Damien Quinn in just a moment. We will start off with some of our transfer news and deal or no deal, which we'll get to in full after Damien Quinn. But Steve-O, we'll start off here with Manchester United. Reportedly willing to pay £153 million for Barcelona starlet Ansu Fati, according to TalkSport. This was like a really exciting player that we thought could perhaps be part of a new generation at Barcelona, until we realised that Barcelona were still the same old generation, and we're all getting really old, and we're all on the way to a humbling defeat in the Champions League. So there could be a situation here where he tries to manoeuvre a way out of the club.
This is absolute nonsense. This is really £153 million for a guy who's out of contract next year. Just like, not even Manchester United could be that daft. Like, this fella's the golden child for Barcelona. He is going to be stepping into the shoes of Lionel Messi when he eventually shuffles off, whether it be, the next couple of seasons, just plays his way down, winds his way down to retirement, or else moves off before that happens. Yeah. This guy, he's the youngest player that's played for Barcelona in the Champions League, the youngest Barcelona player to score in the Champions League. He got 7 goals, 24 appearances last season. He's a wonderful player, and I think Ronald Koeman would be absolutely daft to sell him. Koeman's already decided to cancel Luis Suarez's contract, so he's out the door. So there's space there for Fati. I think, Manchester United struggle to buy players that the other club wants to sell. So I can't see how they're going to buy a player that the other club are absolutely determined to keep.
Yeah, it's a good point. Right, we got an exclusive last week on OTB Sports from Neil Lennon saying that Celtic have made inquiries about Shane Duffy. We are hearing, though, that this deal could be dead. So, Stephen, with an Irish hat on, do you want Duffy dominating in Scotland or eyeing a Premier League move to remain in the best league in the world? Of course, there is a Celtic hat that probably resides somewhere close beside that Irish hat as well, Stephen.
How could a player turn down advances from Rod Stewart? Now, if I was Shane Duffy, I'd be saying, look, well, if Rod Stewart comes down to me and serenades me with, do you think I'm sexy? Well, I'm straight to Parkhead, deal done. I'm on the way. But no, seriously, I think it would be a brilliant move for Shane Duffy. I think it would be a brilliant move for Celtic. Why not try and engineer a loan deal from Brighton where they could look after some of the wages, because that seems to be the big sticking point for Celtic, who we know are notoriously strict with their wage bill. I don't think they're going to disrupt that to bring in a player like Shane Duffy, who's he's not a big star name, but I think he's a player that can improve Celtic. They played near bit on at centre half at the weekend. They had Iyer on the bench alongside Christian Julien. Julien is their main centre half, and he's a brilliant player. But they are short in that department. And I think if Shane Duffy, a man from Derry, to go to Celtic and help them win the 10 in a row this season and to get his first proper medal in the bag, I think that would be a fantastic move for him. And also it would mean game time for him. It would mean then that it would be good for Ireland because he's playing regularly, because as we saw last season, he was on the bench for a lot of the time kicking his heels. And that's not good for a centre-half. You need to be playing regular games, especially as a centre-back. You need that time, and especially with somebody like Shane Duffy, he's such a big unit, he needs regular games. And I think if there's some way Celtic could come to an agreement with Brighton to take him on loan and, split the wages or something like that, I think Duffy should be up there straight away. And, as I said, when Rod Stewart comes calling, you can't turn him down.
No, absolutely not. Right, Hector Bellerin could be on the way to Paris Saint-Germain. RMC Sport in France say he's been offered to the Champions League runners-up as Arsenal seek to free up funds. Would this be a short-sighted move by Arsenal?
He's a funny player, Hector Bellerin, because I think since he came back from that serious injury, he's never really shown the kind of form that he had beforehand that really had him marked down as a star for the future. The other interesting thing is that, I suppose, in that area of the pitch for Arsenal is that they've Ainsley Maitland-Niles has been talked as a possible transfer to Wolverhampton Wanderers. So if they were to lose two right-sided, I don't think they're going to let go of two players that can play that kind of right-back, right midfield role. Listen, if they can get 40, 50 million quid for Hector Bellerin, I think they should snap Paris Saint-Germain's hand off. I think it would be a great deal for Arsenal in the sense that they'd be getting a lot of money from that they could spend elsewhere in the team to bring in maybe a replacement for Hector Bellerin. Paris Saint-Germain, I don't know if they're getting a player that's... I just have my doubts about Bellerin as regards to the kind of levels that he can get up to now, because he certainly hasn't shown it since he's returned to the Arsenal team.
Finally then, former Inter Milan owner Massimo Moratti believes his former club are trying to buy Barcelona's Lionel Messi. That is from AS. It would seem a very Inter Milan thing to do at the moment, but does this make any sense in your view?
It depends on the money. Listen, if Barcelona can get 200, 300 million euro for Lionel Messi, and if Coleman can go behind the scenes and maybe engineer the move in the way that it looks like Messi is the one that's leveraged himself out of the camp now, I think he should try and do it. I know, like he's the star of the club, but I think it's got to a point now where they're still trying to build a team around a 33-year-old player who is definitely on the wane, and I'm going to get, I'll probably get pelters for this, but I just think if they can get him out of there and get a massive, because we know Barcelona, they got huge debts, they need to get money into that club somehow, I think, to try and rebuild. And if they can get him out of there and trying to build a team around some of the new younger stars that are coming around, like the likes of Fati, and take out the likes of Suarez and Lionel Messi. And I think that might help the likes of Antoine Griezmann as well, who could maybe then start to flourish when you take a big character like Messi out of the team. So I think if it's a big, big deal, if they can get a couple of 100 million, 300 million euro for Lionel Messi, and if Koeman can maybe take the heat off himself by making it look as if Messi's the player that engineered the move. Maybe it's time for him to get out of there.
Stephen Doyle, great stuff as always. Thanks a million for taking the call this morning.
Thanks, Owen.
Ger, what do you make of the Messi to Inter Milan rumour?
Not a chance. I listened to Graham Hunter yesterday saying that Messi's there for another year, irrespective of what happens at this point. No one's going to spend that amount of money. He's too old. You don't get that money back, even though your commercial department will be like filling in the Excel sheets to say, oh, look at all the revenue that we're going to make from China, selling all those Messi bedspreads. Like, not going to happen. Also, you're probably going to have a large portion of next season behind closed doors. So are you the bank who's going to lend Inter Milan the money to buy Leo Messi on the basis of future income? You are not that bank. There are no banks in the world that are going to do that. I think the Messi stories are really only going to come into play if he says he's going on strike. And I can't see anything. Like the election is the most important thing that's going to happen in Barcelona. And Koeman needs to find a way to put legs in the team that are going to help the old man run, because he's still one of the best players in world football. So building a team around him is very different from building a team that also has Leo Messi in it, which is, if you're Koeman, this is your 1 4-month window to get things right and catapult yourself back into those managers who can manage the super clubs. If he does a good job here in the next year and maybe gets a second season out of it, well, then he can take the Man United job or the Spurs job or the Arsenal job or the Inter Milan job, or like those jobs where you're getting 10, 15 million a year, as opposed to back to Ajax or Everton where he was a failure.
What about the tax breaks in Italy? This is the key point here. This is one of the reasons why Italy have been able to go to a new level in terms of their domestic league over the last couple of years, because there is an incentive to earn in Italy when there is a break as a footballer at the moment, which obviously was a bit of a legislature change in recent years. We all know that Lionel Messi has had his own troubles with that in Spain at the moment. That could, over the last few years I should say, could that not be a nice little personal nugget for him?
How proud we are to be talking about the tax laws in Italy versus the tax laws in Spain when it comes down to the glory of football. Isn't it safe to say the game is gone when the reason that Leo Messi might go and sign for Inter is not because of his, deep-seated love for the tradition of Helenio Herrera in the 60s and Nicola Berti in the 90s, and who was there? Jurgen Klinsmann? No, it's because there's a code in the Italian tax law that might make his own tax issues that little bit more amenable. I mean, it's such a dream. It's always been a dream of Leo Messi to play for the boyhood club of Inter Milan, who are going to solve his tax issues. Wow, such a romantic story.
I don't know, that's the sort of thing that I certainly aspire to. It's the last thing, that I dream about every night, to be honest. How can I get good tax breaks? And I'm sure Lionel Messi is the same. Neil Tracy, good morning.
Owen, Ger, how are you doing?
Not too bad. Let's get straight into the fact that you're a Munster fan, and this morning is pretty disastrous news in the injury front from a Munster perspective.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Didn't really hear the news until I woke up there, 25 minutes ago, and had a look at the phone. It's probably what we were expecting. It wasn't the biggest shock in the world, I'd have to say. I think even ever since R.G. Snyman went down injured, let alone when Eoin van Graan after the game was saying it looked very serious and he was very worried about it. I think the fact that he was down and had to leave the pitch 7 minutes into his debut gave you an indication that best case scenario, this was in the kind of mid-range of injuries, and chances are we were probably looking at a longer term thing, but you didn't really want to say it. You don't want to probably do that to a player and, start talking about the injury prospects so soon after it's happened for them. But yeah, confirmation today, it's probably what we all expected. And just such a massive blow, because he was someone that Munster fans had been waiting for. I remember it was just after the World Cup final when the speculation started they were going to sign him, and it was pretty much a done deal at that stage. Eoin van Graan had said they'd been speaking to the player. That was the start of November 2019. So we're 8-9 months down the line, and we finally had a chance to see him put on a red jersey, and 7 minutes into the game. And I think what was so frustrating was the fact that injury came when it was right as the Munster fans were getting to see the first little glimpse of what they actually had signed, because the injury happened in the process of coming down off a line-out when he landed awkwardly on his left leg, having stolen an absolutely brilliant line-out, which is precisely the sort of thing he'd been brought in to do. And to do that 7 minutes in was fantastic. Everyone was, getting up off their seat, punching the air. This is something we're going to get used to. And then a few minutes later, seeing him walk off the pitch along with Dave Kilcoyne as well, who, as we know, is now out for an indefinite period of time. He's got an ankle ligament injury on top of that as well. And to compound it all, John Klein having, as part of this injury update as well, neck ligament injuries, and we don't have a necessary timeline on that as well. So a pretty bad morning for a Munster fan, I'd have to say.
This morning last week? Sorry, go on, Ger, you want to get in there first.
Well, it looked like they had the best defensive line-out in European club rugby with Snyman and Peter O'Mahony. You could attack absolutely anybody. You could see every hooker in Europe waking up after that game and going, "Oh my God, how am I going to get past these two? I get past the maniac at the front. There's the giant at the back." Like, it was a brilliant signing. It was exactly what they needed, and it was a real shot in the arm for the club and just that sense of like, actually they're European contenders again. And it feels like that's gone now for this season at least.
Yeah, I suppose, it's a tricky one. I think at this stage it's just about getting through these last couple of games. So the last regular season Pro 14 game this weekend, and then Leinster the following week in the Pro 14 semi-final. I think they're still going to they'll still have an almighty crack off Leinster because, bearing in mind as well, they did have to play 72 minutes without the likes of Snyman and Dave Kilcoyne as well. Jeremy Loughman had to play an entire 72 minutes at loosehead prop. So they did fairly well considering after those injuries in the Leinster game as well. So I'd say they are going to have just a wild enough crack off Leinster in the semi-finals, because they don't necessarily have to worry about the Heineken Champions Cup for those few weeks afterwards as well. They know they will be able to get maybe, even if it's a small rest, but a small rest nonetheless. I think it definitely does lower the expectations. They would have been putting themselves back into contention to contend for a title. I'd imagine they'd probably be looking, depending on how long John Klein is out for, they may have to look at a short-term injury cover, for a signing. And that could potentially put them, if they can get the right person, it can put them back into the mix to be challenging for things as well. At the moment, though, for the next couple of weeks, they are looking pretty slim in second row. It's pretty much Billy Holland and Finian Wycherley, the only two second rows in the senior squad anyway, who look to be fit. We still await confirmation of when Tyg Byrne is actually going to be fully back. At the moment, he's back in kind of light training. But John Klein, R.G. Snyman out injured. And then you're looking down towards the academy, Thomas Ahern, Paddy Kelly, and Eoin O'Connor as well, who we haven't really seen too much. We would know a lot about Thomas Ahern from the Ireland under-20s, where he's looked a real prospect. And I suppose at the very least, the events over the last couple of days might mean we might actually start to see a little bit of him in a senior Munster shirt over the next while. But it is a position where I would, 2 weeks ago, Munster were looking absolutely flush, and at the moment you're kind of scraping around to see what's there.
Yeah, like when you make the comparison with Leinster, the strength of Leinster is Devon Toner coming off the bench. It's not necessarily your James Ryan in your starting spot. That has been the difference between these two provinces for some time. And when you're calling on, the starlets that are hopefully coming through for Munster over the next little while and calling them to start over the next few months, that's probably where the difference is going to be evident once again between the two provinces. But a slight silver lining there at the end. Neil, thanks a million for hopping on the call this morning.
No problem, guys. Take care.
The John Klein thing obviously compounds this quite a bit, Ger, and I completely missed the point that this was actually going to be quite a serious injury for him as well. Like with Kilcoyne and with Snyman, you obviously have two starters there straight away. But to go back to my point that I just made to Neil at the end there, the John Klein strength and depth point, having Klein as an impact sub rather than a starter for Munster would have been such a key point, and how they might actually be able to go toe-to-toe with the best teams in Europe properly. And that's taken away from them as well. This is this is as bad an injury bulletin as a province can possibly get.
I actually think that Klein was their starting. It was a partnership that they were going to just, give everybody minutes and ease Klein in, because it's going to be difficult. There's a lot of games coming, and he is looking at a year-long busy period where he would expect to be involved in the mix from an Ireland perspective as well. So all of a sudden that's taken away too. I don't know enough about Thomas Ahern, but born in February of the year 2000.
He's the same height as Snyman.
6'9".
Yeah, I saw him play for the under-20s earlier in the year. He's absolutely incredible, and kind of like an NBA player when you think to yourself, how can a guy this big have such crafty feet, and how is he so skilled? This guy is a really, really good option, but I mean, to have him as your impact sub off the bench after a Snyman and Klein would have been unbelievable, and that's the issue, I guess.
And the other thing is that he would have then had the daily experience of seeing what Snyman was doing and testing himself physically against Snyman, who is obviously that much further ahead. But look, you know, the opportunity knocks now for Thomas Ahern, and fingers crossed he can step up. Right, to finish up this morning, we just want to give a brief mention of The Drawn Game, which is a new book which you can pre-order now. It features illustrations from 27 artists and interviews with a mix of greats. It's in aid of A Better Life for Livy. Keith and Karen Mulhern from County Donegal are currently raising funds for the treatment and care of their daughter Olivia, also known as Livy. She's been diagnosed with a rare and serious genetic neuromuscular condition called spinal muscular atrophy, SMA type 1. So they're closing in on a €2 million target, and the book looks fantastic. It only costs you €10. The man behind it all is Damien Quinn, who's based in Sydney. Damien, how are you getting on? Tell us a little bit about this book.
How's it going, lads? Thanks for having me on. Yeah, no, the book, I'd say about 7 weeks ago, I was chatting to another illustrator about, you know, I'd love to do something with like a load of different illustrators and try and put something together. And then we thought it might be good to do something for charity. And then, you know, I was reading up about A Better Life for Livy, and I thought that'd be a really worthwhile cause of a daughter of my own. So it kind of hits a note, you know. So yeah, so about 7 weeks ago I started putting it together. So I launched there on Friday, and it's gone really well now so far. We've raised just over €2,000, so it's great.
Brilliant. We can see the cover on screen there at the moment, and a little glimpse inside of some of the phenomenal artwork that we can see. We can see a piece here with Cora Le Tomas. And so it's not just the art, which is fantastic, but also interviews with all the protagonists of this book as well.
Yeah, I reached out, I chanced my arm, and I contacted a couple of GAA players to see if they might get involved, and I'd say literally every single one of them got back to me. I wasn't, and then I had a bit more work to do than I thought I would, but they were great. Once they heard about the cause, they all were happy to get involved, and it just says a lot about the GAA, really, the community. Everybody gets around things like this, so it was great.
Yeah, you'd almost get posters of these illustrations. They're phenomenal. How do people get their hands on it?
Yeah, basically you just go to a website just called thedrawngame.com, and basically it's simple as just clicking the button there, and it's only €10. So yeah, it's easy.
Brilliant stuff. Damien, thanks a million for hopping on this morning to tell us about this.
No bother, lads. Thanks very much.
Great stuff there from
Look at it. It looks amazing.
It does. It certainly does. It's the Drawn Game. It's available now. 27 artists and interviews with a mix of greats, and it's available for €10 now, so worth getting your hands on. Gerard, thanks a million for this morning. You're back in studio tomorrow morning. We are live as ever at 7:30 here on OTB AM. On the radio tonight from 7 o'clock as ever is Off the Ball. You can catch us on all our social channels as well, and make sure to download the brand new OTB Sports app. Chat to you tomorrow morning.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.